Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable. See playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 481, Zen's Purpose. Treasures like the heavenly feather crown bestowed cultivators with special powers. For example, it could amplify the law power of some laws. Similarly, wearing the crown would raise one's cultivation speed. Another example would be the time copper coin owned by the World Commercial Alliance. It contained a trace of time law. If a person wore it for cultivation, he could gain an additional 6 hours per day. One should not underestimate these 6 hours. A cultivator's lifespan was very long. These 6 hours when accumulated over several decades and several centuries could increase a cultivator's lifespan significantly. The ancient tycoon of the World Commercial Alliance was able to live such a long life because of this time copper coin. However, these effects were not as direct as a weapons or protective equipments. Protective equipment determined the cultivator's life, while weapons determined his opponent's. However, owning weapons was not enough. After all, if a cultivator lost his life, then what was the use of collecting sacred weapons? Protective garment of the sacred level, on the other hand, could block the enemy's attack effectively. It could even save the cultivator's life. What is going on with Zen? He seems to have endless secrets. Amongst the three leaders, Hobbs was the most impatient. Dylan smiled helplessly. Cloud Hall is lucky to have someone like him. Looks like it's already certain that Cloud Hall will become a 5th grade sect. In the past few years, Cloud Hall had been working hard to become a 5th grade sect, and it had almost completely accumulated sufficient strength. As long as Letitia mastered Sutra of Empyrean Goddess, the chances of her breaking through the virtual tribulation realm would be very high. After she broke through, Cloud Hall's status as a 5th grade sect would be a certainty. What was more, Cloud Hall would be on a par with Ethereal Spirit sect. However, now Cloud Hall had found a talent in Zen, who had mastered the perfect brushwork. He would become the most powerful runic expert in the central region in the future. Just being a runic expert was insufficient. After all, a runic expert was not a martial artist. Although a runic expert could significantly boost Cloud Hall's reputation, it would not help them rise to the level of a 5th grade sect. However, Zen was different from ordinary runic experts. After all, he had grasped the first layer of fire law entirely. Furthermore, he was also a body refiner, and it was rare to see a body that was as strong as his. Now, just to embarrass Eden, he had casually taken out a sacred weapon-level protective garment. The three leaders were already confused. Many thoughts raced through their minds. How can someone be so strong? What has happened to this world? Were virtual tribulation realm cultivators like them not the strongest anymore? When did an illuminating soul realm cultivator in the central region become so strong? They weren't even sure of the level of Zen's talent. Despite being at the 4th level of the illuminating soul realm, he had easily defeated an elite disciple of Bloodwood Cliff. Zen's talent was already undeniable, it was impossible to estimate it. Since he had beaten an internal elixir realm cultivator while still in the illuminating soul realm, wouldn't he challenge the virtual tribulation realm after he had entered the internal elixir realm? Seeing this scene, Lady Poison Blood of Bloodwood Cliff frowned. Women got jealous easily. Even though Letitia was younger than her by a few hundred years, age had never been a problem in the world of cultivators. Even though she was also the leader of a 4th grade sect, 2 people rushed to give Letitia sacred weapons. Lady Poison Blood could only be said to have gone mad with jealousy, and she felt even more upset about this than when Zen defeated her disciple. As for Eddie, he too glared at Zen as his heart filled with doubt. This kid called Zen is very familiar. Very familiar, but I can't remember where I might have seen him before. As the strongest cultivator in the central region, Eddie was calm and steady. Even though Zen had embarrassed his son by using a sacred weapon, he would not show any signs of anger. No matter how hard he tried, Eddie could not remember where he had seen Zen. He was so confused. Eden tightly gripped the heavenly feather crown in his hands. Although the light emanating from it was reflected in his eyes, yet it seemed so ironic. He suddenly felt that it was too embarrassing to continue holding the crown. But he could neither drop it nor continue to hold it. It would make him look petty if he were to drop it. Moreover, how could he bear to lose a sacred weapon of such value? Yet, he would face endless ridicule if he kept it. You treasure something that is worthless to another. How embarrassing it is, they would say. In the end, a smile appeared on Eden's face as he mocked himself. Since my gift does not please you, I shall not pursue the matter. In the future, after my strength has improved significantly, I hope that I can obtain your favor. Good, that's my son. He is neither humble nor arrogant but resilient and ambitious. Eddie suddenly laughed so loudly that everyone could hear him. His words were good enough to salvage some of Eden's reputation. Eddie knew that his son had been humiliated when his proposal was rejected. However, Eddie considered the experience to be an inspiring story of enduring humiliation. He was not worried about Eden's marriage. Father, I want to surpass you. If I can't even take on such a small task, how can I excel? A confident smile crept over Eden's face. He then leapt up and firmly stood on the stage. He said to Benson, now that this matter is over, let's get back to business. Benson, our fight will continue. Although Eden had a smile on his face, when his gaze shifted to Zen, a trace of viciousness appeared in his eyes. Eden had never been a magnanimous person. However, it would be beneath him to challenge Zen face to face. A divine-level talent with a cultivation level of the internal elixir realm should not be challenging a fourth-level illuminating soul realm disciple. If he did so, what kind of divine-level talent was he? Although it was not practical for him to challenge Zen, that didn't mean that Eden would let Zen off the hook. He decided that Zen had to die in the martial arts contest. Eden had never considered that Zen would be thinking the same thing, to use the challenge card on Eden. Directly challenging Marilyn would arouse Eddie's suspicions. Zen wondered whether Eddie had already begun to suspect his identity. He hoped that Eddie wouldn't connect the dots. If Zen defeated Eden and then challenged Marilyn, it would make sense. As a disciple of Cloud Hall, and because of the conflict between him and Eddie, it would be understandable for Zen to challenge Marilyn. In fact, if Zen defeated Eden, she would challenge him, thus making things easier for Zen. This was the biggest reason why Zen had chosen to stand out. However, Letitia didn't think that far ahead. Ice mist covered her face as she leaned back in the large chair. There was a trace of doubt in her eyes. This guy, how many more secrets does he have? Although she was the leader of Cloud Hall, she was unable to see through Zen. Cloud Hall's Benson had long since considered Eden to be a pain in the rear. Seeing Eden standing on the stage, he also jumped off the platform. Just as Benson stood on the stage, a strange scene appeared. Ripples began to spread out from under his feet. It was as if the entire fighting arena were filled with water. It's the water law power. Benson mainly cultivates the water system cultivation method. He seems to have comprehended 60% of water law. This martial arts contest is truly worth being present for. A vast majority of martial artists have comprehended law power. What about Eden? What cultivation method does he use? Eden's expression was calm as he stared at Benson indifferently. His thoughts were not on Benson at all. In his eyes, Benson's strength was not worthy of his attention. In this martial arts contest, the only person that could threaten him was the ethereal spirit sect's Brent. As for the others, they were just a joke. Whoosh! Benson drew his light blue sword and pointed it straight at Eden. Eden, unsheath your sword. Although Zen had helped Cloud Hall save its reputation just now, Eden had shamelessly claimed that he wanted Letitia to be his woman. This was intolerable, and in the hearts of the disciples of Cloud Hall, such a declaration was unforgivable. Eden sized up Benson's sword, as if it did not exist. However, one moment his expression was as calm as still water, while in the next, a ruthless aura gushed toward his relatively handsome face. He was already extremely dissatisfied, and Benson had dared to provoke him. An invisible aura suddenly burst forth from his body. The moment the aura enveloped him, several wind blades danced on Eden's fingers. Then, like a lion on the prairie, he suddenly lunged at Benson. Chapter 482, Do I Look Weak? Eden had already comprehended 80% of wind law, and he practiced a wind system cultivation method. Moreover, he had also grasped another type of law. In other words, he had cultivated two different laws at the same time. However, Eden was not interested in showing off his achievements in laws. He only had one goal at the moment, and that was to vent. Seeing Eden charge at him like a wild beast, Benson's expression changed. The long sword in his hand lightly tapped the ground before he lifted his wrist. Water tornado. Huff, huff. A water dragon came out from the battle stage and pounced toward Eden. The water tornado was moving at breakneck speed. Even a city wall would be destroyed by it in an instant. Yet, Eden did not stop, and he did not intend to dodge it. He actually rushed toward the water tornado. The moment Eden and the water tornado collided, his hands intersected and he began to attack the water tornado. The water dragon, which contained a great impact force, was simply unable to withstand a single blow from Eden. Eden, who was under the impact of the water dragon, rushed straight toward Benson. Die! Eden lunged at Benson. At this moment, Benson stomped his foot, and a water vein spread out. The instant the water vein spread out, it pushed Eden back a little. Eden missed his target. Nevertheless, he ignored Benson's trick and once again tried to grab him. This time, Benson rolled on the ground and avoided Eden. After getting up, Benson laid his sword horizontally, one hand holding the sword while the other gripped the sword hilt. He closed his eyes and muttered, "Bestow the power of the sea god upon me, infuse the will of pure water in me." There's no chance. Eden's expression was calm. With a gentle breeze, his figure had already floated in front of Benson. He extended his hand and grabbed again. Die. He hadn't taken Benson seriously. Right now, he only wanted to kill Benson to unload the anger he felt in his heart. However, Benson was one of the Cloud Hall's top disciples and was not as weak as Eden thought. When Eden reached out his hand, Benson wielded his longsword. Even though Eden was much stronger than Benson, he was not Zen. He didn't have Zen's abnormal physique. Eden would not be able to catch Benson's sword with his bare hands. He could only retreat. However, Eden's retreat did not mean that he had given up. After dodging Benson's sword, a mighty force wrapped around Eden, and his figure disappeared into the wind. Wind barrier. Only by reaching a certain level of comprehension of the wind law would a cultivator be able to display the wind barrier and hide his figure in the wind. Benson knew that danger was in the wind. He pointed the longsword in his hand at the ground and drew a circle. When the tip of the sword was still on the ground, water ripples began to spread in all directions. Then Benson saw that quite a few water veins were floating to his right. "This way, break it for me." Benson slashed with his sword, and at this time, a voice rang beside his ears. "You guessed wrong. What's more, I'm not interested in playing hide and seek with you." The moment he heard the voice, Benson leapt to the right, but it was too late. Eden had stretched his hand and grabbed him. Even though Benson had managed to pull away from Eden in time, half of his arm had been shredded by the wind blades in Eden's hand. His arm had thus been crippled. Cultivators who had entered the internal elixir realm were extremely tenacious. Benson had experienced countless dangers in his life. Enduring the pain in his arm, he quickly retreated and began swinging his sword with his other hand. Huff, huff, another gust of wind blew. Before Benson could raise his sword, Eden had positioned himself in front of Benson and once again grabbed at him. Clang! Benson's sword fell to the ground. His other arm was also crippled. "Is there any use in struggling?" Eden sneered. He raised both of his hands, and green wind blades came out from his wrists. "I'm not playing anymore. You will die." Then, he sent a palm flying toward Benson. Killing wasn't prohibited in the martial arts contest, but the prerequisite was that the other party didn't admit defeat. The reason why Zen was so careful was that he was afraid of alerting Marilyn. If she were to discover that he was trying to kill her, his plan would be in vain once she admitted defeat. Eden's current situation was the same. He didn't want to give Benson any chance to admit defeat, so after crippling Benson's arms, he activated his killing move. At this critical moment, Benson gritted his teeth and bit down on the tip of his tongue, burning his blood essence to smithereens. While burning his blood essence, Benson circulated his life vitality, forming dark blue water curtains around him, thus blocking Eden. Break! The dark blue water curtains were unable to withstand a single blow from Eden. They shattered in the next instant. However, Eden's attack had been delayed. At this time, Benson finally got a chance. He pulled away from Eden and retreated to the edge of the stage. "I admit defeat." Hearing Benson's words, Xiao removed the enchanted barrier and walked toward Benson. Eden clearly hadn't vented his anger enough. In Xiao's presence, he dashed over, giving a sinister laugh. In the martial arts contest, life and death are decided by fate. How can one admit defeat? He still wanted to kill Benson. Enough. Xiao's face darkened as he blocked Eden. Xiao was, after all, a virtual tribulation realm expert, and Eden was unable to surpass one level to challenge him, so he could only give up. Since he was unable to kill Benson, his anger grew. All right, both contenders need to leave the stage and wait for the next challenge. Eden, draw your card. Xiao's mustache twitched. Even though Eden was Eddie's son, he could not break the rules of the martial arts contest. Eden suppressed the irritation in his heart. His eyes lit up when he heard that Xiao wanted him to draw a card. If he could draw a challenge card, then he could challenge Zen. Thinking of this, Eden walked over and began to draw a wooden card. After he pulled it out, he turned it over and saw that the word, exemption, was written on it. Crack, Eden didn't need such a card at all. He broke it in frustration. Then, he returned to the high platform without looking back. Eddie studied his son's angry expression and smiled. You still can't control your anger. Didn't father teach me not to restrain myself? Eden said dejectedly. Everyone's warrior spirit was different. Some cultivators became stronger when they were calm. And, for others, it was rage that drove them to their best. This was the nature of the warrior spirit. When angered, Eddie and Eden were able to unleash their greatest strength. Eddie shook his head and said, the anger that I'm talking about can become your motivation. But you let it control your mind. It will not benefit you. You have to know how to be angry and how to use your anger. Father is right, Eden nodded. He had already decided. It didn't matter if his level was much higher than Zen's. As long as he drew the first challenge card, he would challenge Zen. Unexpectedly, just as Xiao was preparing for the next battle, Zen shouted, wait. Letitia looked at Zen in confusion. Although he had returned to Cloud Hall's platform, he seemed preoccupied. Xiao asked, what's the matter? I want to use my challenge card. Zen shouted. Who do you want to challenge? Xiao and Letitia asked simultaneously. Everyone's eyes were focused on Zen. He was the first person to use a challenge card in the martial arts contest. No one knew who Zen wanted to challenge. Could it be Marilyn? Letitia frowned as she thought about it. Brent's eyes were full of expectation. Choose me. Let it be me. He had been waiting for his turn for so long. It was already very depressing. I want to challenge an independent warrior, Eden Kui. Zen took out his challenge card and pointed to the platform where Evil East Lord was standing. Challenge me. Eden was stunned for a moment. He had just been thinking of getting the challenge card and getting rid of Zen. Who would have thought that Zen would challenge him before these thoughts even left his mind? Do I look weak? Why does he dare to challenge me? Eden wondered. Although Eden was very willing to let Zen challenge him, he was annoyed by that thought. Chapter 483, Copying Him. When they heard Zen challenge Eden, the cultivators in the grandstand were stupefied. Zen's performance had been amazing in his first two battles. Body refining technique, fire law, he had stunned all with his extraordinary skills. It was difficult to believe that a guy at the 4th level of the illuminating soul realm could possess such powerful abilities. However, it had happened. Zen had not only defeated Alex from the Gongsun clan, but he had also beaten Brody from Bloodwood Cliff. He won every battle in which he had fought, and so, the spectators were convinced that it was not luck that had helped him to win. Zen had proved to all that his strength was enough for him to challenge cultivators at the internal elixir realm. Whether they were willing to admit it or not, that was the truth. I acknowledge that Zen is amazing. He's challenging a cultivator at the internal elixir level although he is at the illuminating soul realm. I don't know how many years it has been since such thing last happened. Regardless, he is bold to challenge Eden. He's courting death, but he's dead or not, that's not our concern. Eden didn't display his real strength in the battle just now, but he still crushed Benson from Cloud Hall. But Zen, he's probably a joke to Eden. The eyes of many disciples from Cloud Hall lit up when they heard Zen's challenge. Benson was the strongest among the internal elixir realm disciples of Cloud Hall. He was at par with Blake. But not long after he entered into battle, he was severely injured by Eden. Had Benson not admitted defeat, Eden would have killed him. All the Cloud Hall disciples felt angry about this. However, there was no use in getting angry, as only the strong survived in the martial arts world. The weak cultivators would only be stomped on by the strong ones. Benson took a pill, which was used for treating injuries. When he heard Zen issue a challenge to Eden, a hint of worry flickered in his eyes. Could Zen be Eden's match and defeat him? Letitia glanced at Zen, who stood beside her, and asked after a little hesitation, are you confident that you will defeat him? Zen turned to look at Letitia. he said with a confident smile, why shouldn't I be? Seeing his smile, Letitia felt warmth flood her heart. Her heart suddenly beat faster. Zen looked all the more attractive with confidence glowing on his face. Even when facing an opponent as strong as Eden, Zen didn't have the slightest trace of fear. After Zen left the high platform, Letitia said blandly, maybe you can kill Marilyn. If Eddie makes a move, I will do my best to help you. In the grandstand, Louis' mouth was wide open as he stared at Zen, who had just stepped into the arena. After a long while, he muttered in a hoarse voice, he wants to challenge Eden. Patrick calmly replied, it would be strange if he didn't. Roche nodded in agreement. Zen had performed too many miracles. Back in Cloud Sect, who could have imagined that he would be able to get the first place? Roche walked toward the area where cultivators bet on the outcome of matches. What are you going to do? Louis flew forward like a gust of wind and stood in Roche's way. I'll bet all the money we have earned on Zen, Roche said indifferently. When Zen defeated Brody, everyone had been surprised. Roche and Louis made plenty of money from that single gamble. All of it? No, at least return the capital to me. Louis pleaded. Get out of the way. Roche ignored Louis' request. No. Louis straightened up and stood firmly in front of Roche. Out of the way. No. Whoosh. In a flash, Roche pressed his shining longsword against Louis' neck. Louis had no choice but to back away. If Zen's chances of winning were based only on his strength, Roche was unsure whether he would be able to win against Eden. However, Roche knew that Zen would never do something without being certain that he would be victorious. No matter how disadvantageous the situation might seem to be for him, Zen would bring everything under his control in the end. Therefore, Roche wanted to gamble on Zen. Due to the huge gap in strength levels between Zen and Eden, the odds offered by the banker were shockingly high. Of course, most cultivators bet on Eden. Although these cultivators didn't like Eden, they couldn't deny that he was powerful. If they had bet on Zen, it would be like throwing their life vitality crystals into the river. Zen briskly walked into the arena and glanced at Eden. Before he could say anything, Eden began to speak. I admire your courage, Eden said with a smile. However, courage comes from the strength one has. You're not strong enough. Yet, you dared to challenge me. This can't be considered as courage. This is recklessness. Hearing Eden's words, Zen said calmly, I can see that you're very confident, but your confidence isn't backed by strength. You are conceited. For a moment, Eden's face hardened at Zen's verbal attack. Then he sneered, interesting. You are a funny man. Even at a time like this, you dare to talk back. I wonder if you have the power to defeat me or you are just bluffing. It doesn't matter to me what you think. If it pleases you, you can think that I'm bluffing, Zen said, shaking his head. Then let me see how long you can hold out, Eden said as he drew his sword from its sheath. It was a simple and unadorned saber, it looked very ordinary. It's the nameless saber. It's Eddie's saber, a sacred weapon. This nameless saber has accompanied Eddie to every battle he joined in the central region. I never thought that he would pass it to his son. If Zen's body protection garment didn't exist, this nameless saber would be considered as one of the best sacred weapons in the central region. Eden pulled out the nameless saber and swung it. Countless small waves were produced with this gentle movement. It almost appeared as if the saber could merge with the air. This time, there won't be any mistakes. Benson from Cloud Hall narrowly escaped in the last battle. I won't give you the chance to admit defeat. After finishing speaking, a foot-long wind blade appeared beside Eden. In the next instant, several wind blades encased Eden. Eden's wind blades looked strange. There were faint rays of silver light at the edge of the wind blades, making the invisible wind blades look all the more powerful as if they were plated with a silver blade. Is this the second type of law power? That is metal law. Zen raised his eyebrows as he studied Eden's wind blades. Did he combine the two types of laws? He wondered. The cyan dragon snorted coldly. Combine? No, he just cleverly connected the two laws. You can also do the same. Do you think it that easy to combine different laws? I'm afraid no one is capable of combining different laws in the human world. Connecting two laws, this is a good idea, Zen nodded. As Zen had the cyan dragon that helped him to understand the opponent's tactics, he didn't care too much about Eden's employment of two types of law powers. But those warriors were different. They only saw the surface of the thing. Look, it's the metal law. Eden actually comprehended 70% of the metal law. No, it should be more than 80%. He's able to comprehend two types of laws when he is at the internal elixir realm. He must be a freak. It's unimaginable. Is this the fusion of laws? This is the first time I've seen someone using two types of laws simultaneously. Even if Zen has mastered fire law completely, I'm afraid he still wouldn't be able to block Eden's attack. Zen smiled faintly when he heard the chatter among the disciples. Wind began rising from his side as well. At the same time, beams of golden light swirled around him. Each time a wind blade was formed, it would merge with a golden light. After a while, golden wind blades started dancing around Zen. Zen's wind blades looked fuller and more energetic than Eden's wind blades. And the golden light emitted from Zen's wind blades was brighter than Eden's silver lights. Zen said to the cyan dragon in his mind, "It is just as you said. I can do it too. This is not an infusion of laws. It is simply embedding two powers into each other. However, the power combined seems to be a lot stronger." Most of the cultivators present had no idea what was happening. Doesn't Zen practice cultivation methods with fire attribute? Can anyone explain what is happening? Why does Zen's method look so similar to Eden's wind blades? Is he copying him? Although I don't really believe it either, let me tell you, what's floating on Zen's body is the complete power of the wind law and the full power of the metal law. The vast majority of cultivators fell silent when they heard this. The complete fire law, the complete wind law, and the complete metal law. How did Zen do it? Can anyone tell me how he managed to comprehend so much law power? And each of the laws is intact. Just when everyone was silent, a loud shout came out from the crowd. The voice pierced through the air and reverberated in all cultivators' ears. Chapter 484, Netherworld Yaksha. Even though Eden was a divine-level talent, he had only managed to comprehend two types of law power. What was more, he had grasped about 80% of each law. But Zen had mastered three types of law power. What was more shocking was that he had fully comprehended all three law powers. Cultivators had their own merits and shortcomings. For instance, some were good at wind law, although they were terrible at fire law. In common cases, a martial artist would only be able to comprehend one type of law power. In the central region, no more than 20 geniuses had managed to learn two law powers. That was why the cultivators in the audience were so astonished when Eden displayed knowledge of two types of law power. They all marveled at his remarkable talent, for he could practice wind law and metal law simultaneously. But to their surprise, Zen had also mastered the two law powers he had displayed, wind law and metal law. In the beginning, Zen had used fire law, which allowed the crowd to think that he mainly practiced refinement technique of the fire attribute. But now, it turned out that he had learned another two law powers, and all the cultivators present found this hard to believe. Perhaps he had a great harvest at the Dragon Soar Arena, Dylan guessed, observing the law power Zen had released. I agree with you. I figured this kid must have been lucky enough to find the complete law power in the Dragon Soar Arena. After all, there is no complete law power in the central region. But it is not an easy task to head for the upper world and comprehend three types of law power. This brat possesses outstanding talent. Habermo, who had been silent all this time, responded flatly. From the three leaders, Dylan was shrewd and sophisticated, while Hobbs was short-tempered. Haber was taciturn. But now, Haber, who was known as the Silent Man, voiced his opinion. It was said that he could stay silent for as long as 10 months. After Haber finished his sentence, the three looked toward the Dragon Soar Arena that stood not far from them. They all were curious about Zen's experience in the Dragon Soar Arena. The Cyan Dragon took credit for Zen's trip to the upper world. And he could master 9 laws thanks to the baptism by laws, which made Zen fit for all kinds of law refinement. Without receiving the baptism by laws, the divine-level talents in the central region could only learn 2 or 3 rules. That was why the Dragon Abyss Palace valued Zen so much. Staring at Zen, Xiao gently shook his head and puzzlement reflected in his eyes. This kid possesses knowledge of 4 laws, not 3, he muttered. When he presided over the pre-qualifying match, he had seen Zen exhibit powerful lightning skills. However, he hadn't paid much attention to Zen then. Also, as the lightning Zen had released had disappeared immediately, Xiao didn't have the time to figure out how much law power was inside the lightning. But considering the lightning changed the magnetic stone's color and it lasted for 5 minutes, he inferred that Zen had fully mastered the first layer of thunder law. 4 law powers. Did this brat comprehend all of them? Xiao wondered with a frown. With the nameless saber in his hand, Eden narrowed his eyes at the golden wind blades surrounding Zen's body. A trace of excitement appeared in his eyes. I see. It looks like I underestimated you. This is your real strength, Eden said before breaking into laughter. Swish, swish, Eden lightly waved his nameless saber, which seemed to be powerful enough to tear anything in the world. With a snort, he said defiantly, "You think you can defeat me because you mastered those rules? You are too naive." Eddie's nameless saber was a puzzle. He had killed countless people with this saber, yet no one knew anything about it. "Then, I'll show you the terrifying power of the sacred weapon." As the light curtain dissipated, Eden pointed his saber straight at Zen. "Although you have learned many rules, you still can't defeat me because my cultivation level is higher than yours." As soon as he finished talking, Eden slid his saber horizontally in front of his chest, and it shone. In the next second, he vanished in the wind. Zen narrowed his eyes. The moment Eden had disappeared, Zen became alert and drew his sword out of his space ring. It was a 3-foot-long plain iron sword. It was devoid of special patterns, and it didn't glow with a bright light. Calmly, Zen swung it above his head. Clang! The sound of a collision between iron and gold rang out. After withstanding his opponent's attack, Zen thrust his sword at the spot in the air and another loud sound echoed through the arena. He then pointed his sword to his left front and cut horizontally. Dang! A figure appeared from the wind. Eden took a step back. His face deathly pale, Eden held on to his nameless saber as he gazed at the iron sword in Zen's hand with his piercing eyes. He asked, "Your sword is also a sacred weapon, isn't it?" Zen shook his sword and countered with a smile, "What do you think? I already told you that your crown is cheap." Eden initially planned to bring Zen down with his nameless saber, which was a sacred weapon, for he didn't think Zen would be able to defend against it. But to Eden's astonishment, Zen took out a sacred weapon and effortlessly defended against his 3 strikes, especially when he had taken the initiative to attack while hiding in the wind. "How did you locate me?" Eden asked. He had learned the technique that made him invisible. People weren't supposed to be able to see him. However, Zen had withstood his blows and located his position. Zen would never let Eden know that his soul was much stronger than his because it had reached the fighting soul realm. And that was why he had easily located Eden. With a faint smile, he replied, "The wind exposed your location." While the two contestants talked with each other, the martial artists on the high platform threw themselves into heated discussions again. "Did you see that?" In the blink of an eye, Zen took out a sacred weapon. More importantly, it is a sword. Many sects don't have a sacred weapon yet. But this brat not only has a sacred level protective garment, he also has a sacred level sword. Did he raid some divine kingdom's treasury? Who knows? Anyway, I want to rob him. He must have many treasures. If I can get them, I can be the best martial artist in the central region. Are you kidding me? Don't flatter yourself. Though he is a cultivator of the illuminating soul realm and you are at the internal elixir realm, do you think you stand a chance against him in a fight? Besides, he is a disciple of Cloud Hall. Eden's face darkened, but soon, a smile danced on the corner of his lips. He surprised me. Looks like he is a difficult opponent, he thought. In the beginning, Eden thought this martial arts contest would be boring. He believed that Brent of Ethereal Spirit Sect would be his only worthy opponent, as Brent was also a divine level talent like him. But now, he met Zen. He had become excited and more serious about this fight. "I'm ashamed of myself because I'm going to fight you more seriously. But I admit that you're strong." With a smile, Eden swept his finger across the edge of his nameless saber. The blade of the saber was immediately stained with blood. On the high platform, Eddie, who was sitting on the chair, suddenly stood up and shouted, "Eden!" Eden gave his father a small smile and responded, "Father, I know what I'm doing." Eddie furrowed his brows and slowly sat back in his seat. He didn't think his son had to activate the power of Nameless Saber to deal with Zen, who was not a formidable opponent for Eden. However, Eden thought differently. He meant to go all out to make sure that he could end Zen's life. Buzz. When Eden's blood flowed into the patterns along the edge, his saber gave off a strong killing aura. The blood ran through the Nameless Saber. After the blood circulated the saber, it dripped onto the ground. But the strange thing was, it didn't seep into the cracks in the field. The drops of blood crawled on the ground as if they were living creatures, and they eventually flew together and formed a rune. Before long, a hand emerged from the rune, followed by shoulders, head, upper body, and legs. A monster of blood had been conjured in front of everyone. With a hunch, it had 2 horns on its head and a tail that looked as sharp as a saber on its back. It stood still, emitting an infinite evil air. It is Netherworld Yaksha. It lives in the river in hell. Chapter 485, Tremendous force. Legend had told time and time again that the river of the netherworld was a pathway leading to perdition. Criminals who committed heinous crimes in their lifetime were to become souls destined to entangle with evil, ruthless flames, and be sent to drown in the infamous stream on their way to the inferno. It was a story told by word of mouth. However, in the central region, the idea of this so-called tale was regarded as an alien concept. Whether it was hell, sin, the netherworld or reincarnation, these terms were of unfathomable origin to the warriors of the central region. Only a few of these labels had been passed down, thus creating the circulating myths most knew of now. There were speculations on how sin was synonymous with the weight of one's malicious aura. Although everyone had been born with this energy, a journey filled with torture in the afterlife would be inevitable if one were to choose the path of a killer. And so, sin was believed to be used as an instrument of temptation to annihilate one's soul before arriving in death. It became a huge burden, a heavy load that kept the conscience anchored into the river of the netherworld. Sin kept the consciousness fugitive as it flew aimlessly through murky waters before it encountered the netherworld yaksha, a ghost-like monster born from the abyss of torture. This nameless saber can summon the netherworld yaksha. It is certainly a powerful sacred weapon. Zen raised his eyebrows, mild curiosity and cautiousness crossing his eyes at the sight of the netherworld yaksha. Zen then looked down at his own iron sword. Unfortunately, Zen wasn't quite sure how well he would be able to wield the blade to its maximum potential. Fairy weapons and the weapons of higher levels usually contained special skills. Some had immunity against all kinds of defenses, while some contained exclusive weapon abilities. Zen's iron sword came from the Dragon Abyss Palace, together with the body protection garment. It might be due to its classification as basic equipment, that he knew nothing of its effects. Perhaps it was too common for them that they didn't bother to mention anything about it when they gave it to Zen. Or, the iron sword could hold the strength of a sacred weapon but didn't possess any distinctive characteristics. Zen didn't pin too much hope on this weapon anyway, as everyone in Dragon Abyss Palace had the equipment. The chances of the sacred weapons being at the most basic level weren't so far off. So what if you've comprehended the 3 types of law power? Zen was forced out of his reverie upon hearing Eden's cunning taunts. If you've at least reached the internal elixir realm, I might have been a fair match. But now, you won't have the chance to improve further because you will die here by my own hands. Eden didn't give Zen much time to react. He charged at him with lightning speed that must have been imperceptible to the untrained eye. At the same time when Eden launched his attack, the netherworld yaksha he summoned with his blood also roared as it awakened, crawling on the ground before ferociously pouncing on its foe. 2 against 1, Zen smiled, taking amusement in his opponent's attempt in giving him no time to recover. I also have an assistant. Seething at Zen's calm demeanor, Eden released a barrage of coordinated attacks with his companion in hopes of catching his rival off guard. Zen summoned his sword spirit. A red light burst out of his body as he did so. He let it wash over him, basking in the presence of his sword spirit. Eden was left watching, mesmerized, as the blaze slowly faded and condensed into the form of a beautiful woman. She had soft, tender skin with an hourglass figure that exuded an ethereal glow, a being that was clearly set apart from the creatures of earth and heaven, an existence belonging solely to the land of the fairies. A rush of wind blew as a giant sword materialized in Lily's graceful hands. She looked at her master with expectancy, and with the connection of their minds. He knew exactly what his aide wanted. He knew she was waiting for his commands. They cooperated with each other flawlessly to fight their enemy. Lily gripped the behemoth steel, which came from the Blood Fiend Emperor, and swung it on their enemy. A thunderous sound was heard upon contact. The netherworld yaksha was thrown in the air, crashing heavily on the enchanted barrier. Upon witnessing the shocking scene, all the onlookers were left dumbstruck. Why did a beauty suddenly appear? What's more, she's swinging such a huge weapon. Is it really the netherworld yaksha? How is it possible that it was thrown away by just one strike? It's not that the netherworld yaksha is too weak, that lady there is just too strong for it. Eden couldn't blame the warrior's incredulous remarks as even he was abandoned in stunned silence. He had originally planned to end Zen's life using a 2-pronged ambush. But then, the netherworld yaksha moved faster than him, thus taking the brunt force behind the female's foray. Who was she? Who knew Zen had this many tricks up his sleeve? His warrior spirit wavered, wondering for a brief moment if he was eligible enough to fight this fellow of unknown lineage. He clenched his fists, nails almost biting his skin as he fervently reminded himself of his own potential. He was a divine-level talent, and he refused to be crushed so easily. The netherworld yaksha was also something that wouldn't be killed by brute force alone. He regained his composure in an instant, giving all his attention to Zen as he assessed him. Chop wind. Eden slashed the air with his saber, thousands of silver wind blades appearing shortly after in reflection to his killing intent. He looked like an enraged monster, all sharp teeth and claws aching with the need for his prey's spilled blood after tearing him into pieces. Zen stood firmly in place. He was confident, a beacon that stood still against the angry, crashing waves of the ocean as they were all caught up in a raging storm. He had no qualms as he assumed a defensive stance, taking Eden's wrath head-on with no hesitation. Ray's sword. Countless, golden wind blades manifested around his body, mimicking Eden's own with a difference that could only be seen in the color of gold. Deafening noises were produced upon the collision of their abilities. Crisp metallic clangs set the rhythm for a hypnotizing dance between the infused metal law attacks. It thrummed in the air, buzzing with zeal that encouraged the pumping of adrenaline through everyone's veins. The sounds were much like that of an iron monster grinding its teeth. It continued on for minutes, the sound getting higher and higher in pitch until it eventually made the spectators' ears throb painfully hurt as consequence to the reverberations. No one was exempted from the onslaught of second-hand attacks to the public. High-level cultivators like Lady Poisonblood and Letitia couldn't help but also frown at the unbearable feedback, while the vast majority of warriors all covered their ears to shut out the noise. Eden took a step backward upon seeing his first assault fail in breaking through Zen's defenses. Gritting his teeth, he tried once again. Air kill. Zen widened his eyes in surprise. It was undeniable that he had a deeper grasp of the wind law than Eden did, yet Eden seemed to be more skillful in applying this law. After all, Zen hadn't refined any cultivation methods on the wind system, while his adversary had immersed himself in its artistry for years. Ray's sword. In one swift movement, Zen had raised his sword to block the incoming swing. Clang. Eden might not have expected Zen's counter, but he still didn't falter. He grinned menacingly, knowing that he had ensnared Zen in his trap. Boom. The stream of blade energy forming behind Eden's saber released and shot towards Zen. It cut through his shoulder, leaving a wide, gaping wound that revealed the white bone underneath its flesh. Still sticking with defense? Let's see how long you can hold out. He flashed a cold smile, having fully taken advantage of his nemesis' stubborn defensive power. He had the upper hand now. Zen shook his shoulder, mustering up his energy to force the melding of his muscles together, thus stopping the bleeding of his wound. I was too careless, he said faintly. Though the central region was a small place compared to the bustling places all over the world, the martial arts learned within the region were unique and well worthy of praise. A loud noise erupted from the other side of the arena, catching both contenders' interest. A cacophony of rackets exploded. The netherworld yaksha was flung away by Lily's pure, unadulterated strength recurrently. Its repeated crashes onto the enchanted barrier steadily chipped away at its strength, resulting to the shield being unstable. Lily was fierce and merciless, and yet the netherworld yaksha looked as if it only continued growing in size. Did you see that? A smug smirk appeared on Eden's face upon taking notice of Zen's scrutinizing stare on the creature. With each callous clobber, the monstrous beast only got bigger, as if absorbing the power released onto it. So that's how it works. You thought that I can't kill it, that's why you're confident in defeating me, right? Zen appraised him with an unreadable expression on his face. If that's all you have, you're doomed to die today. Eden fumed and directed the point of his nameless saber at him. What did you say, mongrel? I don't even need to use half my power to defeat you. Zen chuckled ominously as he sent Lily a message in his mind. She abruptly stopped her battle with the netherworld yaksha and sheathed her huge sword, bounding towards Eden instead. In turn, Zen had sprung on the netherworld yaksha, effectively changing their positions. Eden grew confused, but knew exactly that he didn't have the leisure to think further. His combatant now was a warrior of great prowess. She danced gracefully with the huge sword in her hands and swung it deftly at him. Eden needed to unleash his whole aptitude if he hoped to stand against her. She was sophisticated and refined with her swordsmanship, brimming with an expertise that could even block Eden's special abilities. He caused almost no damage to Lily, only leaving a small scratch on her enormous weapon. On the other hand, Zen fought with the beast, fearlessly striking his foe in a fight for dominance. With the accumulated force of Lily's attacks, the netherworld yaksha easily reached the height of two people combined. Bam! It rammed onto the enchanted barrier after Zen viciously smashed the netherworld yaksha for the last time, shattering the precious barricade into fragments. His primordial energy circulated through his body, wallowing him in a welcoming warmth he gladly embraced. In the past, Zen wasn't aware of the true value of this energy. It was only now that he realized its usefulness. That's it, Zen beamed. Since the beast was so persistent, he had taken it as an opportunity to test out his strength. He had just employed the power of 500 dragon scales from the cyan dragon, so the force had been proven to be unimaginable. In his excitement, he forgot the massive crowd of warriors' gazes that were trained on him. They were thrown into a mass hysteria, unable to register what they had seen with their own eyes. The enchanted barrier built up by the World Commercial Alliance was smashed. How did he make it? It requires tremendous force to smash that barrier. How much strength did he even use to make that happen? Chapter 486. Destroying Eden's dedication to martial arts. The World Commercial Alliance had hosted the martial arts contest once every decade for hundreds of years. At that rate, it had organized the contest several dozen times. After arranging so many contests, it had accumulated much experience. For example, it had settled the problem of the enchanted barrier in the arena. 70 years ago, at a contest, two martial artists fought each other in the finals. They burned their blood essence to unleash their strongest power, ultimately breaking the enchanted barrier and affecting the audience in the stands. Over 1,000 martial artists were injured, and hundreds died. The Alliance drew a lesson from the bitter experience and paid more attention to the facilities during the contest. The arena used the most reliable material. A type of extremely strong ironwood heart was woven into silk. The hardest basalt was ground into powder and then mixed with the ironwood heart to make bricks. These bricks were paved one by one and covered by a layer of steel plate. The plate was not an ordinary object. It was also forged by a weapon refiner and contained heavenly essence. In a sense, it could be treated as a mysterious weapon. The light curtain of the enchanted barrier was even more carefully designed. The top runic experts in the central region drew over 400 runes to form 6 enchanted barriers. These 6 enchanted barriers were only a finger-width distance from each other. With the power of the runes, a dispersive effect was created within these gaps to combine the 6 enchanted barriers. This was the protection effort of the World Commercial Alliance. In the following 70 years, the light curtain of the enchanted barrier had never been broken. Even earlier, when Zen's sword spirit, Lily, had slammed the netherworld Yaksha on the barrier with her sword, causing the barrier to show signs of instability, Xiao's expression did not change at all. Even if one barrier was broken, there were still 5 barriers behind it. However, this thought only lasted for less than 30 seconds. After Zen and Lily switched positions, with a punch, the enchanted barrier shattered. The moment the enchanted barrier broke, several explosions were heard in the surrounding area. Smoke and dust floated into the air. The runes that were hidden underneath the ground around the arena couldn't withstand the pressure. At this time, they exploded as well. How powerful was Zen's body? It was not challenging for any of the elders at the virtual tribulation realm to break the barrier. However, Hobbs, who was famous for his explosive power, could not shatter the barrier with the strength of his physical body. It was even more impossible for Letitia, Lady Poisonblood, and Raven. Eddie, however, might have been capable of breaking the barrier. In comparison, Zen was only at the illuminating soul realm. Moreover, he did not direct his power at the barrier, but at the Yaksha's body. The force Zen used rippled through the Yaksha's body before striking the barrier. Although the impact would have reduced upon hitting the Yaksha, it was still strong enough to destroy the barrier. Could it be said that Zen had inherent divine strength? But this wouldn't explain the strength of Zen's physical body. What was more surprising was that Zen hadn't summoned all the power of the dragon scales. Right now, Zen was quite wealthy. In the vast Oracle City, there were many mysterious weapons. Before the martial arts contest, Zen had collected some mysterious weapons and refined them into heavenly essence. After consuming the essence, he had been able to light up 800 dragon scales in one go. Therefore, if Zen wanted to use the dragon scales, he could summon the power of over 1,000 dragon scales. However, his body wouldn't be able to bear the tremendous power. If Zen unleashed all of the power of the dragon scales, his body would probably collapse and suffer irreparable damage. However, the power of 500 dragon scales was already very terrifying. The Yaksha rolled out of the arena, but it quickly stood. After all, it could not be killed so quickly with just physical injuries. After taking such a heavy blow from Zen, the Yaksha had grown even larger. Now, it was 30 feet tall. Oh! The Yaksha stood and once again charged toward Zen. Zen did not care about how big the Yaksha had grown. After repeated collisions and blows, the primordial energy in his body flowed continually. The energy was now being stored in his limbs and bones. In the center of the arena, Eden was hindered by Lily's sword dance, making it hard for him to escape. However, he would occasionally glance at Zen with a smile on his face. Go on, he thought. The more attacks the Yaksha receives, the bigger its size, and the stronger it will become. Surely, Zen had noticed the change in the Yaksha. At this moment, the Yaksha was already 30 feet tall. It looked like a colossal monster. Even the explosive power of 500 dragon scales could not defeat such a huge creature. It's about time. As the Yaksha swung its tail, Zen utilized the wind law. With a flutter of his wind, he dodged the attack and approached the Yaksha's head. The iron sword in his hand instantly collapsed, and the violent power of lightning spontaneously erupted along the iron sword. Lightning could ward off evil. Almost all ghosts were afraid of the power of lightning. Back on Cloud Road, Rocher's Extreme Thunder Sword intent was extremely effective against the impenetrable Dark Devil Phantom. Putsi. Zen released the first layer of the Thunder Law, Annihilation. The enormous Yaksha was like a block of ice in summer. A large hole immediately appeared in its stomach as Zen's sword pierced it. The fourth law. This boy has comprehended the power of 4 laws. I'm not surprised. After all, he is talented. Even if a 5th power of law were to appear in his body, I wouldn't be astonished. The power of 4 laws has appeared on the same person at the same time. Moreover, it's the full power. What's wrong with this era? How would such a monster be born? If Eden is a divine level talent, then what level of talent is Zen? Seeing Zen display the power of Thunder Law, many of the cultivators were speechless. They didn't know what to say. Zen didn't have time to listen to the cultivators' nonsense. Instead of stopping after his first blow, Zen stabbed the Yaksha several times in quick succession. The surging lightning and the powerful flicking of the sword mixed. The Yaksha that was originally invulnerable to swords and spears had met its nemesis. Large holes began appearing on its body. Finally, with a howl, the Yaksha's body crumbled. A scarlet rune appeared under the Yaksha's feet. Its broken body began to fall toward the rune. The giant head was still glaring at Zen as it snuck into the rune. Zen intended to cut off the Yaksha's head. However, when he thrust his sword at the rune, his sword bounced back. What is this? Zen's eyes narrowed. He did not expect that the small rune would be able to block his sword. What Zen did not know was that the rune was a symbol that was connected to the Netherworld River. Even the strongest powerhouse in this boundless universe would not be able to destroy it, as it involved the most fundamental thing in the world. Since he couldn't keep the Yaksha, Zen had no choice but to give up and turn back to Eden. Didn't you want me to die? Zen said with a smile. Eden was currently in a precarious state. He was running around to avoid Lily, whose sword dance was an interlocking move. Since he had been caught by it, Eden would die for sure. He had no time to retort as he was busy dealing with Lily. You have a sacred weapon, a powerful father, and divine-level talent. In a word, you have all the conditions to comprehend law power, to be exact, 2 kinds of law powers. Zen smiled and continued, in the end, however, you are weak in front of me. You even summoned a helper from the Netherworld to defeat me. Alas! You also summoned this woman, Eden retorted while dodging Lily's attack. This woman, she is not a woman. She is only my sword spirit. I created her while I was cultivating. You know, she's completely different from the underworld ghost that you summoned. Zen continued to speak with a mocking smile. Eden's face flushed red, but he was helpless. He wanted to save the situation, so he resorted to dangerous moves, but he was still unable to get rid of Lily. You are at the primary level of the internal elixir realm, but I am only at the illuminating soul realm. Still, I can defeat you so easily. Are you sure that you have divine level talent, not earth level? In my opinion, your talent doesn't deserve to be ranked. Zen did not physically attack Eden. Instead, he provoked Eden with his words. In the martial arts contest, Zen intended to kill only one person, and that was Marilyn. Now, if Zen used his full strength, for example, if he were to unleash the malicious wheel of life and death, he would be able to kill Eden. However, Eden wasn't his target. If he killed Eden, it was likely that his plan would be ruined. However, although Zen didn't want to kill Eden, that didn't mean he would be merciful. The son of his enemy was also his enemy. Moreover, Eden had wanted to kill Zen. Now, Zen was trying to destroy Eden's dedication to martial arts. Judging from your appearance, you should be at least 30, right? You have only reached the primary level of the internal elixir realm at the age of 30. What's worse, you are unable to defeat an illuminating soul realm cultivator. Under pressure by Zen's constant taunting, Eden suddenly shouted and rushed toward Zen, ignoring Lily's sword dance. Bam! How could Lily give Eden the chance to hurt Zen? The great sword struck Eden's body, and Eden rolled across the arena toward Zen, his hair in disarray, and the nameless saber in his hand falling to the side. A guy like you wants to propose to Tia. Do you think you're qualified? Zen smiled as he glared at Eden. Enough. The veins on Eddie's forehead popped out as he abruptly stood and shouted. As a top expert of the central region, he knew what Zen was trying to do. Zen wanted to destroy Eden's dedication to martial arts. Zen gazed at Eddie, sighed, and said, "Too late." At this moment, Eden, who was lying on the ground, felt a cracking sound coming from his heart. Although he didn't suffer too much, he suddenly felt an ache in his heart. Chapter 487. I don't like being protected by women. All humans had a soft spot. Zen's weakness was his younger sister, whom he tried to protect even at the cost of his life. Zen's dream was to reach the peak of martial arts to explore the secrets of this world. His warrior spirit was so firm that no one could affect it adversely. However, Eden was different. His experience differed significantly from Zen's experience. Zen had lived a tough life and been mistreated. He persisted in his pursuit of martial arts for it was the only way to change his life. Eden's father was Eddie, who ranked first in the central region. As his only child, Eden was blessed with great talent, insights, and resources. Even Brent hadn't gotten as many resources as Eden did. Eddie had piled all his resources onto Eden, while Brent had access to limited resources. Ethereal Spirit Sect also had to provide resources to its other talented disciples other than Brent. It was safe to say that Eden would surely become the master of a 6th-grade sacred place or a divine kingdom in the near future with regard to his talent and the resources his father had provided him with. That was why Eden, a cultivator at the internal elixir realm, had the guts to propose to Letitia. He was confident that he would be among the top martial artists. Having grown up in that environment, Eden had developed a strong level of self-confidence. In his eyes, the elites of the younger generation in the central region were nothing but losers. He looked down on them. He was not afraid of any challenges. Since he was always confident, Eden had no trouble achieving great things in the martial arts field. Besides, no one among the young generation cultivators in the central region could defeat him. If it weren't for Zen, he would be the strongest cultivator in the near future. However, people like him had a fatal weakness: defeat or failure would come as a big blow. He was an excellent cultivator. The harder Eden cultivated, the more outstanding he became. But all his hard work was on the premise that he was superior to others. However, once a fellow appeared and defeated Eden, he would feel frustrated and doubt his capabilities and whether his efforts were in vain. Zen was that guy. In terms of laws, Zen had surpassed Eden. As for treasures, Zen had 2 sacred weapons, which were better than Eden's weapons. Compared to his cultivation base, Zen was at a lower level than Eden, and this was an insult to him. However, Zen was more talented than Eden. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to defeat Eden. At this point, Eden was a dispirited mess. He derided himself for being conceited and arrogant. And his determination in martial arts had been shattered. Eddie, who had been standing on the platform, took a step forward and reached the field. Although Eddie was bulky, he was not tall. As he stepped forward, he looked determined as if nothing could strike him down. Too wooed, too wooed. Eddie stepped onto the stage unhurriedly, fixing his resolute, cold eyes on Zen. Meanwhile, Letitia walked onto the stage. With the icy fog around her flickering, she landed on the field and stood in front of Zen. In terms of her current strength, she had difficulty protecting Zen from Eddie. Despite that, she had chosen to come to her disciple's aid. At the same time, the 3 leaders of the World Commercial Alliance joined them. The 3 fat men had different expressions on their faces, but there was a serious look in their eyes as if they were about to fight with a fierce enemy. No one stood a chance to get the better of Eddie, who was the strongest man in the central region in single combat. The 3 fatties of the World Commercial Alliance could fight off Eddie, but they would pay a heavy price. In fact, the 3 men had no intention of getting involved in this. After all, Eddie was planning to confront Zen, who was Cloud Hall's disciple. This matter, hence, did not involve the three fat men from the World Commercial Alliance. But they had hosted this martial arts contest, and according to the rules, Zen would not be held responsible even if he had taken Eden's life. However, all Zen had done was destroy Eden's warrior spirit. "Eddie, you're not going to make a move on the lad, are you?" Dylan asked cheekily. His subtle message was that Eddie would be taunted if he fought with a young cultivator, who was only at the illuminating soul realm. Eddie usually wouldn't attack a young cultivator in front of hundreds of thousands of cultivators, for it would make him the laughingstock of Oracle City. However, Zen had destroyed Eden's warrior spirit. All the old strong cultivators in the central region knew that Eddie had high expectations of his son. An eerie, defiant smile appeared on Eddie's face. He snorted at Zen, who was standing behind Letitia. "You are a bold fellow." Eddie's eyes widened as an overwhelming aura extended toward Zen. Letitia, who was standing in front of Zen, felt the pressure and knitted her eyebrows. Instantly, she intertwined her fingers, intending to display a secret technique to withstand the pressure Eddie had released. Letitia hadn't completely recovered yet, and even if she had fully restored her formal cultivation, she would still not match Eddie. But if she had mastered the Sutra of the Empyrean Goddess and made a breakthrough in the virtual tribulation realm, she would stand a chance to beat Eddie. Hence, she was under higher pressure when facing a powerful opponent like Eddie. To her surprise, Zen grabbed her hand and pulled her behind him. Eyes sparkling with resolve, he whispered to Letitia, "I don't like being protected by women." He never wanted to see a woman risking her life to protect him. However, in his lifetime, many women had come to his rescue, such as Nina, Aura, and Yolanda. Back then, Zen was a weak cultivator, and he had to accept their help. But now he didn't want to see Letitia get in trouble because of him. Letitia had been so focused on activating her secret skill that she didn't expect Zen to react that way. By the time she realized what was going on, she was behind Zen, and her right hand was still in his. "He is holding my hand in front of so many people," Letitia thought to herself. At this moment, Letitia had completely forgotten that they were in grave danger. At the thought that Zen had taken her hand, she began to blush and her heart raced. The next second, she returned to her senses and realized that Zen had to bear the enormous pressure from Eddie. Although Zen could beat a cultivator at the internal elixir realm, he can't withstand the power Eddie has activated. After all, the latter is stronger than the cultivators of the virtual tribulation realm. At this thought, Letitia became extremely worried about Zen's safety. "Be careful," she reminded him. The pressure Eddie had activated was amazingly powerful. If a senior cultivator of the virtual tribulation realm were in Zen's place, his soul would get damaged, while a cultivator at the internal elixir realm would be killed. The three fat men looked at each other and furrowed their eyebrows. Eddie didn't display a skill, but he is using his momentum to suppress Zen. The lad is in a lot of trouble now. Perhaps he will lose his life, they brooded. Is he pretending to be a hero? He even stands in front of Letitia. Does he really think that he is more powerful than a cultivator at the virtual tribulation realm? One man quizzed. "You're upset because he is holding Letitia's hand, aren't you?" Another responded with a grin. "Although he has exceptional talent, Zen is going to die. His soul will be crushed, and then he will live like the Walking Dead. He can't survive for 3 days without his soul." Many of the cultivators present had no idea what Zen was thinking. If he hid behind Letitia, he would only get injured. He is lucky to be such an awesome genius. As long as he is alive, everything is possible. He could have improved his strength and taken his revenge one day, the crowd thought. Most of the cultivators knew how to endure, and they guessed that Zen knew it as well. That was why they were confused by his decision. Chapter 488, Warmth. Eddie brought his disciples to compete in the martial arts contest, and it would be improper for him to kill a young warrior at the illuminating soul realm during the competition. All the people in the world would laugh at him. Despite being a dignified top-ranked warrior in the central region, he could not afford to lose. That was what people were going to say about him if he killed Zen. Furthermore, the three fat men from the World Commercial Alliance would not allow such a thing to happen. Moreover, there was an older woman, a powerful master who stood behind Cloud Hall. And she might be watching the scene from somewhere now. The World Commercial Alliance also had an ancient tycoon, who had lived for over 1,000 years. Although he was very old, his power was too deep to be fathomable. If it were a one-on-one fight, Eddie would not be afraid of any of them. But if these men came together to fight him, as powerful as Eddie was, he would not be able to battle them all. After careful consideration, Eddie restrained his impulse to rip Zen to shreds, and opted for another way to vent his anger. He decided to utilize the force of his powerful soul to suppress Zen. If Letitia were to stand in front of Zen to protect him, Eddie would have trouble carrying out his plan, as he might have to hurt the leader of Cloud Hall first. But he didn't expect that Zen would step forward and pull Letitia aside. "Since you want to be a hero and court death, then no one can help you." Eddie was pleased in his heart, but he appeared calm. Considering the powerful force of his soul, if he wanted to crush the soul of a warrior at the illuminating soul realm, it would be as easy as a wheel crushing a mantis. The moment his powerful soul aura emerged, it soared toward Zen with great momentum, as if it had the power to send rocks to hit the clouds and use waves to tear the shore apart. It caused a strong wind and forced its way toward Zen. Despite facing with the terrifying pressure, Zen stood straight, a faint smile spreading across his face. At this moment, he was like a reef in the ocean. No matter how forcefully Eddie's pressure was hitting him, Zen remained steadfast and unmoved. The raging wind blew off one of Letitia's golden hairpins from her hair. Her soft hair was unbound, and it fluttered in the wind. She snuggled against Zen's shoulder and used her hands to brush her hair away from her eyes. Then, she raised her head and stared at the heroic figure in front of her. Seeing Zen calmly handling Eddie's suppression, Letitia forgot that she should feel surprised. She was so lost in her thoughts that she wasn't paying any attention to what was happening around them. She remembered that her family had moved from the northern region to the central region when she was very young. She stayed in a carriage during their long and tedious journey. The cold wind howled. Her parents had wrapped her with a warm quilt, the only quilt they had, to keep her warm and keep out the cold. She would occasionally poke her head out of the quilt and crane her neck toward the carriage window. When she felt the chilling wind blowing outside, she realized how fortunate and happy she was to be protected in the warm carriage. It was on that night that her whole family, 37 people, including her parents and extended family members, were killed. However, she was lucky enough to be saved by a Cloud Hall disciple who was passing by. It was because of him that she had escaped death and survived. Later, she was brought to the Cloud School, an organization affiliated to Cloud Hall. Her astonishing talent was first noticed there, and she made her way up to Cloud Hall, and finally became what she was now, a superior figure in the central region, the leader of a top-ranking 4th-grade sect. Later on, Letitia found out what happened that night. It turned out that a 3rd-grade sect had mistakenly exterminated her entire family. After acquiring enough power to enact her revenge, Letitia went to the 3rd-grade sect alone and wiped it away from the map of the central region. She annihilated the entire sect. At Cloud Hall, although Letitia appeared immature, and sometimes she was very obstinate like a little girl, she still had her strong stance, like an iron lady. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to remain in power as the leader of Cloud Hall. However, even though she had avenged her family's death, which had weighed heavily on her, she was aware that the happiness lost in her childhood could no longer be retrieved. She still missed the time she spent when she was in that carriage, with her family members. As she listened to the horses' hooves galloping down the road, the north wind blew past her like a knife scraping against her face, and she was then tucked away in the warm quilt, feeling lucky that she didn't have to suffer from the cold or hunger. The moment Zen pulled her into his arms, Letitia felt that she had returned to that time when she was wrapped in the quilt. This young man used his body, though not an imposing feature, to shoulder everything himself and keep all the danger from her. It made her feel very warm. It was the little warmth that belonged only to her. The wind quietly dissipated, and the pressure gradually disappeared. Zen had worn a smile throughout. He had confidently glared at the evil East Lord, who stood not far away. Eddie's eyes were filled with doubt. Soon, the doubt became surprise, and finally, his eyes dimmed as helplessness flooded him. Different feelings struck him within a short moment. He had already released the power of the suppression to perform at its maximum level. In a certain sense, it was equivalent to launching an attack towards Zen's soul, but in a disguised form. How could the soul of this guy withstand the powerful suppression? This was impossible. Eddie assumed that Zen had a magic treasure that could reinforce his soul or something else that enabled him to be immune to such kind of damage. He cast a meaningful look at Zen and hid his killing aura deep inside. He turned around and walked toward his son. Eden's hair was disheveled, and his eyes were dull. He looked dejected as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. He had lost all his glow and looked pale, like a dead person. Eddie grabbed Eden's hand and reached out with his other hand for the saber. The nameless saber swirled back into his hand. In a flash, he returned to the high platform where he had been seated earlier. The three fat masters from the World Commercial Alliance exchanged glances. Shock registered on Dylan's chubby face. He was transfixed like a frozen statue. Zen had withstood Eddie's suppression. He wondered how powerful Zen's soul was. Of course, they didn't know that Zen's soul had already entered the fighting soul realm. Even the owl beast's evil spirit had been unable to destroy Zen's soul. How could Eddie possibly hurt Zen's soul? From a certain perspective, so far, Zen's soul, which had entered the fighting soul realm, was the most powerful weapon in his arsenal. To most warriors, what happened between Zen and Eddie was only a small clash that lasted less than a minute. However, the situation had been the most dangerous one. Many warriors in the audience failed to see that, but a few cultivators were able to sense the tension. However, even though they knew something was happening between the two, the warriors couldn't tell what it really was. The soul realm was a level that was beyond their reach, and it was difficult for them to understand how it worked. As for Lady Poison Blood of Bloodwood Cliff, Raven of the Black Mountain Sect, the elderly Luna of the mysterious Luna Hall, and a few others, they were all as shocked as the three leaders of the World Commercial Alliance. If it were them who had been standing in front of Eddie, and if they had been facing the suppression coming from Eddie's soul, their souls would have been injured, and they would have spat a lot of blood. But it was strange that Zen just stood there unharmed as if nothing had happened. This didn't make any sense. Letitia gently turned her head and picked up the golden phoenix hairpin from the ground. She pulled her pitch black hair to the back and locked it with her index finger before she used the hairpin to hold her hair in place. Then she walked over to Zen's side and said softly, "Let's go to the platform." After she finished speaking, cold air surrounded her. She leapt into the air. The long feathers of the ice phoenix fluttered behind her, and within a split second, she landed on the high platform. Zen remained silent. At least, he was sure that he had achieved his goal. Even though it was not what he had intended, Zen had successfully angered Eddie. Eddie had brought 2 disciples to participate in the martial arts contest this year. One was his son, Eden, while the other was Marilyn. If Eddie wanted to win in the martial arts competition, he could only rely on Marilyn C. Marilyn C was at the medium stage of the internal elixir realm, and she was stronger than Eden. She also had the purple power body, like Yan did. This woman had followed Eddie for a few decades, so she must have learned a lot from him. Zen had no idea how talented she was, or what her real strength was. But no matter how strong she was, she must die. Zen wouldn't let her go like he did to Eden. After getting to the high platform, Letitia returned to the large chair prepared for her. She sat there, her mind still a mess, and her eyes wandering around. Occasionally, she would cast secret glances at Zen, like a little girl, but soon, she would shift her gaze and look at the sky aimlessly. Of course, no one noticed her secret movements, because she once again cast layers of icy mist to encase herself. At this moment, Xiao came to the center of the arena and announced that the competition would be suspended. Since Zen had broken the enchanted barrier on the battle arena, they needed to fix it. However, the runes that had been hidden under the enchanted barrier had exploded and needed to be repaired before the next battle could begin. It was clear that repairing these runes would take time. After all, the World Commercial Alliance had arranged these runes many years ago and they had put many efforts into building them. If they wanted to repair these runes, they would need to send for the runic experts who had made them. When the warriors in the grandstand heard the news that the competition would be suspended, they were annoyed and began to curse. Dang, it cost me a supreme life vitality crystal to get in here. Why would you suddenly suspend the battle? Is this what the World Commercial Alliance is like? What a good reputation. My good mood is spoiled. Isn't it just an enchanted barrier? Why should you bother? Hurry up, go on fighting. These warriors didn't care about the enchantment barrier being broken. They only wanted to watch the fierce battle and bet on the game. In fact, the World Commercial Alliance suspended the competition for the safety of the warriors in the grandstand. In a fight between internal elixir realm masters, without the protection of the enchanted barrier, those warriors outside the arena would be easily hurt by the aftermath of the strikes. Chapter 489, Repair the Runes. Xiao's face twisted when he heard the waves of curses from the audience. He thought, if we don't repair these enchanted barriers, then hundreds of people in the audience might be killed during the battles. When that happens, you'll be cursing us again. Not long after, 3 people flew into the arena and bowed before Xiao. They were the runic experts of the World Commercial Alliance. Their expertise was such that they could be considered as the top runic experts in the entire central region. How did the World Commercial Alliance accumulate all these resources? Because they were rich and had the best weapon refiners, alchemists, and runic experts. Masters of different professions and many independent cultivators were willing to join the World Commercial Alliance considering its reputation. Although they would have a good future if they joined sects, they would receive more resources if they allied with the World Commercial Alliance. This was one of the ways through which the World Commercial Alliance attracted talented people. It was true that the three runic experts couldn't compare to Arnold, the son of Rune. But it was difficult to find a runic expert in the central region as equally skilled at rune drawing as these three men. In Oracle City, almost all the runes from the central region had been collected in a place called the Runic Tower. Most runic experts would come here for further cultivation. Felix from Cloud Hall had been sent to the Runic Tower for further cultivation for several years. These three runic experts were the rulers of the Runic Tower. In the runic world of the central region, their thoughts and ideas regarding runes were at the peak. Hearing Xiao's words, the three runic experts nodded and split up. They walked to the side of the arena and dug up the stone bricks. Under these bricks, there were many green-colored stone tablets, and many complicated runes were drawn on these stone tablets. However, at this moment, many of the runes on the stone tablets had been so badly burned that it looked as if they had been thrown into a big fire. The power burden was too great for these runes to withstand, a runic expert said. Another runic expert frowned and said, these 6 enchanted barriers would support each other. How much power would it take to burn these runes? Can someone at the internal elixir realm do this? Unbelievable. A cultivator at the internal elixir realm did not cause this damage, another runic expert said as he shook his head. Many cultivators in Oracle City would watch the martial arts contest through picture slabs. And so they knew how the enchanted barriers had been damaged. Although the three runic experts were cultivators at the internal elixir realm, they had been obsessed with rune research their entire lives, and rarely paid attention to the outside world. Even if the World Commercial Alliance started a war with some race, they would not be distracted. They were certainly not interested in the martial arts contest. So devoted were they that these runic experts would probably only leave the Runic Tower if Oracle City were destroyed. Hearing the three runic experts speak, Xiao smiled helplessly and said, Nate, these enchanted barriers weren't broken by a cultivator at the internal elixir realm. Among the three runic experts, Nate Ni was the oldest and had the richest knowledge of runes. He was also the owner of the Runic Tower. It can only be broken by a cultivator at the Virtual Tribulation realm. Can a cultivator at the Virtual Tribulation realm participate in the martial arts contest? Nate asked. Hearing Nate's question, Xiao laughed even more helplessly. It was destroyed by a cultivator at the Illuminating Soul realm. Nate raised his head at Xiao's words and glared at him. Xiao, are you joking with me? Although Nate was only a cultivator at the internal elixir realm, he was still the owner of the Tunic Tower. His position was even higher than Xiao, an elder of the World Commercial Alliance. Therefore, he didn't have to show respect to Xiao. Do I look like I'm joking? The person who broke these enchanted barriers is still here, Xiao said and pointed to the elevated platform for Cloud Hall. Nate shook his head and said, I'm not interested in knowing who broke the enchanted barriers. You can say they were broken by someone at the Illuminating Soul realm, but I don't believe you. He looked at a few pieces of stone tablets and then shook his head again. It'll take 3 days to repair these runes. What, 3 days? Xiao felt dizzy when he heard this. He had only paused the match for a moment, but the audience were already cursing. If the match were to be suspended for 3 days, then the audience might go berserk. 3 days is still quite short. We will need to work overtime. If you ask other runic experts to repair the runes, it will take about a year or so, Nate said indifferently. Xiao was at a loss for words. I can only give you 6 hours. The moment Xiao finished speaking, Nate threw the stone tablet on the ground and said to his companions, let's go. The 3 of them were prepared to leave. You, Xiao's face twitched in anger. He knew that these old fellows from the Runic Tower had terrible tempers, but he didn't expect them to be this stubborn. He glanced helplessly at the 3 leaders of the World Commercial Alliance. The 3 fatties looked at each other with bitter smiles on their faces. The World Commercial Alliance was just an organization. It was different from sects, as they were bound together by benefits. Sometimes the members of the World Commercial Alliance did not care about the leaders' opinions, especially the old fellows from the Runic Tower. They were so arrogant that they were unwilling to listen to the leaders. At this moment, the cultivators in the audience clamored again. Hurry up and fix the enchanted barriers for us. I want to watch the match. Otherwise, return my supreme crystal. It took me a long time to save the money. I've spent a supreme life vitality crystal on the match, not this. Refund, return the supreme crystals to us. This bunch of useless runic experts probably won't be able to fix them. Nate glared at the noisy cultivators and sneered, "You can't do anything to me if I don't fix them. If you think you can do better, then try fixing them yourselves." Upon hearing that, the cultivators became enraged. "If I knew how to fix them, I wouldn't need you, right? The runic tower is more in name than in capability. These runic experts are trash." Xiao's face was filled with bitterness. How did the martial arts contest end up like this? Seeing that the situation was getting troublesome, Dylan couldn't sit still anymore. He decided to try to persuade them kindly. He walked to the side of the arena and said, "Nate, calm down. We'll have to trouble you with fixing these runes." When Nate saw Dylan, his attitude eased up a bit. In the end, he gave in to the leader of the World Commercial Alliance. He said, 3 days. This is the best that we can offer. 3 days. Why don't you die? Cursed many cultivators who had heard Nate's estimate. A troubled expression reflected on Dylan's face. 3 days is too long. We can't pause the martial arts contest for that long. Nate's eyes widened. If you can find a person in the central region who can fix them in less than 3 days, I will call him master. Dylan's breath was caught in his throat at Nate's words. He couldn't think of any way to refute him. As the owner of the runic tower, Nate was known as the topmost runic expert in the central region. No one could match him in the runic field. At this moment, a voice came from the elevated platform, "Master Shi, I can repair these runes in 2 hours. How much will the World Commercial Alliance pay me?" The one who spoke was none other than Zen. He stood at the edge of the elevated platform with a smile. Dylan Shi glanced at Zen and slapped his forehead. He didn't remember Zen's abilities while arguing with those runic experts. Zen was also a runic expert, and he had mastered the amazing perfect brushwork. Xiao's eyes lit up. During the pre-qualifying match, Xiao had heard Michael mention Zen's amazing skills of rune drawing. Are you sure? Dylan hesitated. Zen had so many gifts, and that was why Dylan had forgotten about his talent in runes. More importantly, Zen had mastered the perfect brushwork. It was a unique technique that could correctly activate the characteristics of the runic materials and increase the material utilization to the perfect state. However, the runes were also graded. The runes that Michael had shown them were only 1-star and 2-star runes, so Dylan subconsciously felt that Zen could only draw 1-star and 2-star runes. As for the 3-star, 4-star, and even 5-star runes, it would need years of practice to draw them. Zen was only about 18 years old. Dylan didn't think he could do that. Before Zen could reply, Nate laughed disapprovingly. "I've heard people bragging before, but I've never heard of them boasting like this. Ha ha, what's going on with young people these days? You are talking pure nonsense." Another runic expert taunted. "Sometimes you have to pay a price for speaking carelessly," said the third runic expert in a serious manner. Chapter 490. Zen started repairing the runes. There was a time when everyone would recommend those who wanted to study runes to go to the ethereal spirit sect. This was because Arnold, the son of Rune, was born in the ethereal spirit sect. Over hundreds of years, all sorts of runic experts had gone to the sect for further study. Unfortunately, the ethereal spirit sect had consumed too much of Arnold's fame and didn't place too much importance on the study of runes. Gradually, ethereal spirit sect's rune technique began to decline. Other than the sect protecting array left by Arnold, the ethereal spirit sect's rune technique wasn't special. Along with the rise of the World Commercial Alliance, as well as the continuous evolution of runes and the establishment of the runic tower, all the runic experts in the central region would choose to study runes at the runic tower instead of at ethereal spirit sect. The runic tower was the authority of runes in the entire central region, and these 3 people were the highest ranked runic experts at the runic tower. Their knowledge of runes was second to none. When Nate said they needed 3 days, no one in the central region dared to say otherwise. Therefore, he dared to say, "If you can find a person in the central region who can fix them in less than 3 days, I will call him master." That was why they mocked Zen's ignorance. As the saying went, young people are fearless. It is because they are ignorant. Zen didn't get angry when he heard Nate's taunt. He didn't bother to pay attention to them and said to Dylan, "Master Shi, I can repair these runes within 2 hours. How much are you offering me? Are you sure you can fix them?" Zen had performed many unimaginable miracles. No one believed that a warrior at the illuminating soul realm could make any of these miracles happen. However, Zen had done it. Dylan felt that he had gotten used to witnessing one more miracle from Zen. I can give it a try. Even if I fail, it won't delay the match in any way, right? Zen said with a laugh. Zen's argument made sense. At most, it would delay the match by a few hours. If Zen was unable to repair the runes, the warriors would have to wait 3 days to watch the next battle. 2 hours meant nothing compared to the 3-day wait. Just as Dylan was about to nod, Nate and the other 2 runic experts stopped him. They didn't think that Zen would be able to repair these runes. In their eyes, this kid wouldn't be able to fix them in 200 or 2000 hours, let alone 2 hours. The fact that Dylan actually believed Zen made it hard for them to accept. It was like how a chef, who had fed his master for many years, spent 20 hours cooking a great dish. All of a sudden, a brat who came from nowhere said he could cook the same dish in 2 hours. Not only did the master not shoo the brat away, he even agreed to let him try. This was a pure humiliation to Nate and his companions. Master Shi, if you choose to believe that brat, then the runic tower won't interfere in this matter, Nate said coldly in a threatening tone. The other 2 runic experts were also not convinced. Ha ha, Dylan was very familiar with these people's temper, but he was not a person without courage. As the leader of the World Commercial Alliance, he had strength, vision, courage, and luck. After laughing, he said, I think it's better to let him have a try first. Humph. The 3 runic experts turned their heads and took a few steps back. They crossed their arms and stared at Zen coldly. They didn't leave as they wanted to watch Zen make a fool of himself. Dylan gestured to Zen and said, if you can repair these runes, I will reward you with this number. He extended his hand and said, 50,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals. 50,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals. Zen raised an eyebrow. Not enough, Dylan asked. No. Zen was overjoyed. 50,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals would equal 50 billion low-grade Life Vitality Crystals. With so many Supreme Crystals, he could perhaps buy the entire Burning Sky Empire. The World Commercial Alliance was indeed wealthy. Although 50,000 Supreme Crystals was a large amount, to the World Commercial Alliance, it was nothing more than a drop in the bucket. In this competition, just the entrance fee alone earned them 200,000 to 300,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals. Zen did not bargain. Since he had already agreed to the reward, he squatted and began to examine the runes on the stone tablets, one by one. Although most of these runes were 3-star runes, a few of them were 4-star runes. At Zen's request, the World Commercial Alliance quickly sent over the materials for drawing the runes. Previously, the World Commercial Alliance had made these runes, and the quantity of materials that had been used had been recorded. With the abundance of materials in Oracle City, it was easy to prepare another set of materials. Grinding, batching, ink making. Zen was very skilled in these processes. When the 3 runic experts saw Zen's practiced movements, their eyes lit up. Nate even nodded slightly in approval. Zen's movements were light, meticulous, and precise. He could serve as an assistant in the runic tower. Runic experts at the runic tower did not need to prepare their own materials, such as grinding, batching, and making ink. These trivial matters were left to their assistants. But finding a good assistant was very difficult. After all, not only did the assistants need patience, they also needed to comprehend the characteristics of the various materials, and most importantly, they needed to be dexterous. From what Nate and his companions could see, Zen was very suitable to be an assistant. After Zen quickly processed these materials, he took out his runic brush. This runic brush is pretty good. However, it's such a waste for a beginner to use this kind of rune brush, Nate thought. Zen had obtained the rune brush during a bet with the Cloud Hall's runic expert, Felix. This runic brush had been very precious to Felix, so it was naturally of outstanding quality. Zen dipped the tip of his brush into the ink and closed his eyes to feel the composition of the materials. This was the most crucial step in drawing runes. Zen had by now demonstrated that he had all the qualities desired in a runic expert. After a dozen seconds, Zen opened his eyes and started to paint on the blank stone tablet in front of him. The moment the tip of the brush touched the piece of stone, a speck of brown shimmer flashed. As Zen moved the tip of the brush, the brown glow became brighter and lasted longer. The first stroke was completed in one go. When the 3 runic experts saw the first stroke, their pupils dilated. Nate even sucked in a breath of cold air. Perfect brushwork. The fact that Zen knew how to use the perfect brushwork was known by many people such as Michael, the 3 leaders of World Commercial Alliance, and Xiao. But people of the runic tower had no idea about it. These people studied runes all the time and paid no attention to the outside world. They stubbornly believed that only they could represent the highest rune technique in the central region. They believed that the rune techniques in the outside world were not valuable. How did a runic expert with perfect brushwork suddenly appear? When they saw this scene, the three runic experts were shocked and didn't know what to do. A trace of coldness flashed through Dylan's small eyes. He had agreed to let Zen try because he wanted to deflate Nate's and his companions' arrogance. These guys were so full of themselves that they had become arrogant in the past few years. Even if the World Commercial Alliance was to ask them to draw some runes, they would ask for an outrageous price. They behaved as if they were indifferent toward everyone and acted like they were the number one in the central region. They had forgotten that they were also members of the World Commercial Alliance and had long forgotten that the Runic Tower had been established with the financial resources of the World Commercial Alliance. Now, they would understand that they were no longer number one in rune drawing in the central region. Zen's rune drawing speed was very fast. When Zen was drawing runes in the early days, he needed to stop and think about how to draw them. Rune drawing was linked to the strength of a runic expert's soul. Rune drawing was rather soul power consuming. But Zen's soul power was stronger now. A soul that had stepped into the fighting soul realm was incomparably sturdy. Drawing divine textures was a small matter. Moreover, he was only following the original strokes on the stone tablet and restoring these runes to their original state. Buzz. The runic brush kept drawing out a stroke after another, and soon, the first rune was repaired. At this moment, as one of the central region's greatest runic experts, Nate could not utter a single word in front of Zen. Chapter 491, Secret Divine Texture. The fine tip of the runic brush glided smoothly over the smooth surface. Although it was just a third-star rune, Zen had drawn it quite swiftly. A rune master might not have a high cultivation level, but his soul force was more powerful than those cultivators of his level. Meanwhile, Dylan and the stewards watched Zen in amazement. Zen finished the first rune swiftly without a break. His soul's strength is incredible, Dylan thought. His eyes darted to a steward of the World Commercial Alliance who stood next to him, and then he winked. The steward understood and proceeded to open a jade box with a black pill inside, and then he handed it to Zen. "What is this?" Zen asked dubiously as he glanced at the box. "This is the top-grade soul-nurturing pill. You can nourish your soul with this, since you must have consumed some during the drawing," the steward replied politely. "No need. I didn't use much of my soul force," Zen grinned and said. The steward nodded and quietly went back with the jade box. Ever since Zen's soul had entered the fighting soul realm, his soul had been enhanced every day. He didn't need to rest even if he had drawn 500 third-star runes, so he didn't need the soul-nurturing pill to nourish his soul either. Besides, the soul-nurturing pill still contained some impurities even if it was of the best quality. Zen thought that it was inconvenient if he had to refine the impurities in it after he had consumed the elixir. Thus, he refused to accept their gift. On the other hand, Dylan glared at the three runic experts and internally cursed them. After they had drawn half of a rune, they would bathe themselves, wash their hands, burn an incense stick, and swallow a soul-nurturing pill. They were afraid that their souls would be hurt when they drew the rune. They were quite arrogant, but the runes they had drawn weren't even that powerful. However, the runes they sold were shockingly overpriced. They had a fixed price list, and the people of the World Commercial Alliance or other dealers had never gotten any discounts at all. People from the Runic Tower certainly made a big fortune. However, the Runic Tower needed to turn in a part of its income to the World Commercial Alliance. Even then, Dylan didn't quite like the organization. He disagreed with the way they dealt with things. That was why he was quite pleased when Zen, a talented runic expert, arrived. He could make those three old men realize how lame they are, Dylan mentally sneered. And he did get what he wanted, as the three runic experts including Nate had all lowered their heads now. A teenager easily drew the 3-star rune. Although Zen didn't look down at them, they felt ashamed of themselves. What a perfect brushwork. I can't reach his level in rune making even if I spend the rest of my life practicing runes, the three of them thought. After Zen had drawn the first rune, he became excited. He didn't waste a minute and immediately started to draw outlines on the stone tablet. What's going on? Why did Zen repair the runes? Weren't you updated? The three old fellows from the Runic Tower said that they needed 3 days to repair them, but Zen said that he could do it in 2 hours. 3 days? Are they kidding me? Who would spend 3 days watching them repair some stupid runes? But why would Zen be able to repair those runes? I heard that the runic tower is the sacred place for runes in the central region. Zen is not a runic expert from there, but a warrior. How could he do that? Since he knows how to draw runes, it means that Zen is a rune master himself. It's not fair. Now a warrior of the illuminating soul realm, who has defeated warriors at the internal elixir realm, is even proficient in drawing runes. The audience started to whisper among themselves. In reality, however, they knew nothing about runes. They had no idea how to appreciate the perfect brushwork or what it meant to do it in such a fast speed like Zen did. Then again, the 3 old men of the runic tower needed 3 days to complete the runes, while Zen only needed 2 hours to finish them. Therefore, they concluded that Zen was better at runes than those runic experts. The leaders of Bloodwood Cliff, Mysterious Luna Hall and Ethereal Spirit Sect just swallowed as they observed how fast Zen drew the runes. The Cloud Hall is so lucky to have such a disciple. Not only is he an amazing cultivator, but he's also well versed in runes, the 3 leaders thought. In fact, Lady Poison Blood of the Bloodwood Cliff and Raven of the Black Mountain Sect had dropped by and paid Nate a big sum for his runes. But according to what they observed, Zen was more adept in runes than Nate was. What made the 3 leaders the most envious was Zen had presented his leader a top-grade sacred weapon. What a rich, generous disciple, they thought with admiration. Meanwhile, Lady Poison Blood had mixed feelings as she stared at Zen. A few seconds later, her gaze went to Letitia, who was on the platform, and thought, this boy is really something. If I was Letitia, I would be quite fond of him too, but there is a huge gap between them with regard to their cultivation. Although this brat has just entered the illuminating soul realm, he already defeated Eden, who is a divine level talent. This means that Zen is more talented than Eden. It is just a matter of time before he would step into the virtual tribulation realm. While Lady Poison Blood was busy with her thoughts, Letitia beamed as she observed Zen. A man appeared more charming than usual when he was focused on something. 1 stone tablet, 5 stone tablets, 20, 50. Zen restored the runes on the burnt stones one by one. Soon enough, he had repaired 126 stones. After that, a few stewards from the World Commercial Alliance came forward, picked up the stones, and walked away. They needed to arrange the stones in a sequence, so that the runes could show their real power. In addition to these 3rd star runes, there were still 3 larger pieces of stones with 4th star runes left. Clearly, it was more difficult to draw 4th star runes than the 3rd star ones. Zen's initial plan was to directly restore those 4th star runes. However, he caught a glimpse of his sister before he had started to draw on the stone in front of him. Devoid of any facial expressions, Yan was more like a robot except that she could breathe. Zen's face turned cold, and the brush in his hand glowed brilliantly. He drew out the first line based on its former pattern on the stone, and then made some adjustments. He drew a special rune on that particular stone tablet. It was a divine texture. However, Zen had a special method to make it look like a common 4th star rune. Only Nate and the other excellent runic experts could notice the difference after they infused their souls into the rune. Still, Nate couldn't even raise his head after being teased by Dylan, not to mention pay attention to the 4th star rune Zen was painting. A 4th star rune's pattern was much more complicated than that of a 3rd star one. 15 minutes later, Zen finally completed the 4th star rune. The ink of the 4-star rune was the gold cloud powder, which was made of bones that had existed way before, and other materials. Thus, the patterns on the stone gave off golden radiance, and a mysterious divine texture was hidden under the radiance. When Dylan saw that Zen had drawn the 4th star rune, he sighed in relief. Nate, it looks like you need to hang your name upside down on the wall, he said to Nate with a smile. To hang one's own name upside down on the wall was a way to show that he had been humiliated by himself. Nate stared at Zen's 4th star rune. I'll do that when I'm back, he responded after a long pause. Each runic expert of the runic tower had their names written with runes on their room doors. He could hang his name upside down on the door, but it was a huge insult to him. I finally taught you a lesson. I'm sure you will be less chirpy, Dylan scoffed in his heart. After a while, Zen finished drawing the 2nd and the 3rd 4th star runes. The stewards picked up the 3 4th star runes and started to place them carefully. Dylan walked towards Zen and greeted him. Mr. Luo, you have painted over 100 runes. I was wondering if you need to nourish your soul, he said with a smile. If you don't like the soul nurturing pills because they have impurities, I have a soul nurturing jade which can help you nourish your soul. It is an extra reward for your work, he added. Soul nurturing jade. The three runic experts, including Nate, exclaimed. Their eyes gleamed with envy as they stared at the soul-nurturing jade. They all knew that the World Commercial Alliance had a jade, which could cultivate one's spirit. Nate and the other runic experts had previously asked for it in the past few years, but their requests were denied. To their surprise, Dylan was now giving it to the young lad. Chapter 492, The Same Goal. Any treasures that could strengthen the power of the soul were extremely rare, so they were invaluable. The soul-nurturing jade could only be considered as a fairy weapon. However, there were numerous fairy weapons in the central region, but only a few could strengthen a soul's power. Even in the World Commercial Alliance, this soul-nurturing jade was considered as a valuable item. When Nate heard that Dylan was going to give Zen the soul-nurturing jade, he felt that Dylan's decision was a bit unfair. However, he didn't dare to say anything. Whatever he would say would only invite insult to himself. In comparison to Zen, the runic experts were useless men, good for nothing. The truth was that they were not amateurs. After all, their rune techniques represented the highest level in the central region. In particular, Nate was the only one who was able to draw a 5-star rune. If he served for any sect, he would be highly valued by that sect, and he would be treated as if he were their top treasure. Since Zen was outstanding, they paled in comparison with Zen. They were not in the same league. Dylan's offer of the soul-nurturing jade was a nice gesture with which to befriend Zen. The World Commercial Alliance had made a move really fast. The three leaders had recognized Zen's value the moment Michael passed Zen's first rune work to the headquarters of the World Commercial Alliance. But they didn't expect that the situation would change so quickly. Back then, Zen appeared from the Dragon Soar Arena. To settle things, Dylan offended Zen by questioning him about the secret of the Dragon Soar Arena. And soon after, he met Zen during the martial arts contest. The World Commercial Alliance was, of course, not afraid of Zen. But they valued great talents and would spare no efforts to attract them. That was why the World Commercial Alliance had developed and thrived to what it was today. The soul-nurturing jade was offered to Zen as compensation. It wasn't too late for Dylan to make amends. Zen politely accepted it. He knew the value of the soul-nurturing jade. Though this soul-nurturing jade would be of little use to Zen since his soul had entered the fighting soul realm, he could gift it to someone else or sell it and make a fortune. After accepting the soul-nurturing jade, Zen turned to the stewards and said, "I've just finished drawing these runes, but I'm not sure if they will work properly." The stewards of the World Commercial Alliance put the last 3 stones that carried the 4-star runes Zen had drawn into place. After that, Xiao took out an array plate and prepared to test the enchanted barrier. Nate and the others viciously hoped that the runes wouldn't work and that the enchanted barrier wouldn't perform its function. However, what happened next disappointed them. As soon as Xiao activated the array plate in his hand, it began to spin. An enchanted barrier spread out from the edge of the arena and quickly gathered toward the top, forming a complete luminous curtain that encased the arena. The first luminous curtain appeared, followed by the second, the third, the fourth. There were 6 luminous curtains in total. They were closely connected and glowed softly. The lights emitted from the 6 luminous curtains were more solid and stable than the previous enchanted barriers. This was the effect of the perfect brushwork. Zen used his perfect brushwork to activate the properties and energy of the materials to their greatest extent. As a result, the power of these enchanted barriers was stronger and was more resistant to heavy blows. Very good. It seems that everything works fine now. Dylan was very satisfied with the enchanted barriers. Mr. Luo, here are the 50,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals we promised as your reward. As soon as Dylan finished speaking, a steward brought a plate. On it was a token made of purple crystal. You can use it to withdraw 50,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals at any World Commercial Alliance bank, he said to Zen. Zen nodded and put the purple crystal token into his space ring. It's finally fixed. The battle can begin again. Where's the banker? Hurry up. Announce the odds so we can take the bet. How much did Zen earn by repairing the runes? Didn't you hear? 50,000 Supreme Crystals, more than what I earned in the past 2 years while at a 3rd grade sect. This is crazy. That kid is rich. Let's rob him. Haha. First of all, you are definitely not his match. And second, the sect you belong to wouldn't be a match for Cloud Hall. You want to rob him? You're courting death. After almost 2 hours of waiting patiently, the crowd of warriors began buzzing again. Once Zen returned to the high platform where the people of Cloud Hall were seated, Xiao nodded in satisfaction and began drawing lots. The competition of the martial arts contest had begun again. The situation in the arena hadn't changed, however. The warriors from various sects still had the upper hand. When warriors from sects encountered independent warriors in a battle, the warriors from sects were always victorious. However, a dark horse appeared among the independent warriors. He was Owen from the Woolen Grassland. Even though he was only at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm, Owen had defeated 2 sect warriors in a row with this scimitar. His performance surprised all and stirred the crowd. After all, most warriors in the grandstand were independent warriors or warriors from third-grade sects. They were not eligible to join large sects, but they always had the mentality that independent warriors were not inferior to sect warriors. Owen's performance boosted their confidence. Moreover, Owen was only at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm, and it was an amazing feat for him to defeat internal elixir realm warriors. There were 10 matches in the lucky draw box. Owen's name tag appeared for 3 battles. Surprisingly, Owen won all 3 matches, which made the whole competition reach its climax. In an instant, the atmosphere of the entire arena became heated. The banker also repeatedly increased the odds for Owen's battles. After Owen finished his 3rd battle, he began to draw his card. In the first 2 rounds, he got exemption cards. However, in the last, he drew a challenge card. After Owen obtained the challenge card, he began to circle the arena to pick his opponent. He got a challenge card. Whom does he want to challenge? Will he challenge Brent of the Ethereal Spirit Sect? I heard that Brent is the only one who has divine level talent in the whole of Ethereal Spirit Sect. They are both at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm. So it's highly possible that Owen will choose Brent. Is it? I think he will most likely challenge Zen. Owen's eyes quickly swept past the side platform where independent warriors were seated. Then his eyes ran down the high platform, and finally, they rested on Zen. Their eyes met for a moment. Zen's eyes flickered. Does he want to pick me? He wondered. Owen smiled faintly and shifted his gaze away from Zen. His eyes swept past the people from the Ethereal Spirit Sect and fixed on the high platform where the evil East Lord sat. He stared at a woman in that area. Behind Eddie stood 2 women, and one of them was Zen's sister, Yan, whose 6 senses were sealed. Beside Yan stood another woman, whose 6 senses were sealed as well. When his eyes fell on the latter, Owen looked grieved, and he tightened his grip on the scimitar. But soon, the sadness in his eyes disappeared. Instead, he looked more determined. He raised his voice and shouted, I will challenge the independent warrior, Marilyn C. What? Zen's eyes flashed. At the same time, he looked at the area where Eddie was seated, his mind a mess. Why did Owen pick Marilyn? Owen had participated in the pre-qualifying match on the same day as Zen. On that day, Zen had used the 12-level pagoda to extort him ruthlessly. But Owen, who came from the Woolen Grassland, seemed to be quite wealthy, as he gave a lot of Supreme Life Vitality crystals to Zen without batting an eye. Owen's cultivation base was at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm. He was able to challenge an internal elixir realm warrior, thus, his real strength was something to be reckoned with. Regardless, Zen didn't expect that Owen would challenge Marilyn. Could it be that he has the same goal as me? Zen's heart suddenly beat faster. Zen looked in the direction where Yan stood. Beside Yan stood another woman. Zen had noticed her earlier before. She was the 3rd person who had the purple power body. If it hadn't been for her, Zen wouldn't have faced such a grim situation. Of course, Zen wouldn't blame it on her. Did Owen come here for her? It was highly possible. What was her relationship with Owen? It didn't matter anymore. It's getting tricky. Zen frowned. Marilyn was his target. She must die by his hands. Before he achieved his goal, Zen did not want any mishaps to happen. If Owen killed her in battle, it would be the best result for Zen. But if he failed to kill Marilyn, then Marilyn would be alerted. This was not what Zen would expect to see. But now, Zen couldn't stop him. Perhaps, at this moment, Owen had the same thoughts as he did. Challenge me, ha 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 ha. Marilyn walked gracefully forward and said with a charming smile, you want to kill me, don't you? Hearing these words, Owen's and Zen's hearts suddenly tightened. They turned red in the face. Chapter 493, Beast Transmogrifying. Marilyn had kept an extremely low profile the entire time. Prior to the battle, she radiated no presence and was almost insignificant as she stood behind Eddie on the elevated platform. However, when she spoke, her body suddenly began to radiate with power. Owen from the Woolen Grassland, also known as the killer of Shadow Wolf King, she declared, the mocking lilt in her tone masked by her charming smile. If I'm guessing it right, that one there is your love, right? Marilyn pointed at the woman beside Yan with a smirk. That woman looked like a statue, expressionless and still, but that was mainly because of her sealed sixth senses. Despite that, however, one could still feel the refined aura that emanated from her body. Buzz. Owen's hand that had been holding his scimitar trembled, and the scimitar whistled softly. His eyes looked up at Marilyn, eyes flashing dangerously with repressed fury. "What's it to you?" he hissed. Raising his scimitar, Owen directed his rage to Eddie. "You," he addressed him, "the one who ranks number 1 in the central region. You went ahead and snatched away my love. Prepare to die for taking her away from me." Silence befell upon everyone with Owen's words. His declaration was bold, especially since it was directed to the number 1 warrior in the central region. It equated to a challenge if anything. Eddie, however, remained unfazed. He turned up his nose with a smirk as if amused that Owen even had the audacity to talk to him. To someone of Eddie's rank, the so-called Shadow Wolf King Killer wasn't even worthy of a single glance, so he saw no need to respond to what he considered incessant babbling. Marilyn giggled at Owen's words. "Aren't you being childish?" she asked him with the innocence of a fair child. "As a warrior, shouldn't you be aware of the fact that power always comes first? How can you blame us for taking away your love when you were too weak to protect her in the first place? Aren't you supposed to be a divine-level talent?" "What? A divine-level talent?" The arena was suddenly abuzz with whispers at Marilyn's words. "Another divine-level talent, and he is an independent warrior. He should have joined a great sect. I'm sure they'd be clamoring for someone like him. A divine-level talent is 1 in a million. They are bound to rule the world. Why would they even bother joining a sect? Before he becomes a powerful warrior, he has to keep it low-key. But he doesn't know about this. Alas, he shouldn't have provoked Eddie. Now he's dead meat for sure." Marilyn smiled upon hearing the bystanders' words. "You're a divine-level talent, but you don't know how to keep a low profile. If I were you, I would have just hidden somewhere to cultivate and kept away from the world. Once strong enough, I would then reveal myself and take revenge," she said. "To be honest, even if you aren't able to avenge yourself, you could still steal someone else's woman. It was a really stupid move to come out and court death." Owen's face scrunched up in anger. "Do you think that everyone is like you? Shameless," he roared. Unable to bear it any longer, Owen swung his scimitar towards Marilyn, summoning a green, glowing tornado from nowhere. The tornado whooshed across the platform and towards the woman. Marilyn's brows twitched at the suddenness of the attack. Thinking quickly, she waved her lily-white hands and a stream of pure black life vitality burst forth from her, condensing into a vortex and completely eliminating the tornado. She smiled at Owen. "Don't be so hasty," she teased, pouting cutely. "I know you want to kill me. It's not like I'm not giving you this chance." She floated to the center of the arena. "In fact, even if you do manage to kill me, you won't be able to save your woman anyway. Although the purple power body is rare, Eddie can always find other women with this kind of body. Do you understand? I'm disposable." Owen glared hard at Marilyn. "At least I can spin things out after killing you," he said coldly. Marilyn nodded, as if in understanding. "You want to spin things out until you become powerful enough to fight Eddie, right?" she said, but then roughly shook her head. "Ah, what a pity. Even if you are a divine-level talent you can never hope to be a match for Eddie." Owen smirked. "You can never be too sure. Since you've stepped into this arena, I will definitely kill you," he snarled. He raised his scimitar and roared, a cold burst of killing intent emanating from his body. Upon the elevated platform of the ethereal spirit sect, Xander was shaking his head as he looked down at the scene. He regarded Owen with disappointment. This person's talent is on par with Brent's. His temperament is also steady and determined. What a pity, young people are just too impulsive. Brent pouted at his words. Is it really worth it to risk so much just for a woman? Xander smiled. Ah, Brent, you are still too young, he remarked. There are just some things you have yet to understand. The relationship between a man and a woman is just too complicated. Brent huffed. I just don't think it's worth it. He was still young and all he really cared about was cultivation. The romantic affairs between a man and a woman were unknown and uninteresting to him. Don't talk about things you don't understand, Philip snapped. In his eyes, Owen was a hero. A man who was willing to die all for the sake of his beloved. How many warriors in this world were willing to do such a noble thing? Their world was cruel. Every man was wholly concerned with himself. Masters and disciples would fight against each other for a single rare treasure while brothers were willing to kill one another for glory. However, here stood Owen, willing to risk it all in the name of love. The audience was silent, all waiting with bated breath for what would happen next. Perhaps, in their hearts, some of them already began to root for Owen. But was winning even truly a possibility? Marilyn was at the middle stage of the internal elixir realm while Owen was only at the ultimate stage of the illuminating soul realm. There was a minuscule margin of possibility for him to win. But even if he did defeat her, the evil East Lord remained a problem. He was the #1 warrior of the Central region after all. Zen had provoked Eden earlier with his words, and Eddie had been caught off guard when his son's warrior spirit was destroyed. Right now, Marilyn was the most important person for Eddie to be able to set up the lustful demon array. He would not idly sit by and watch her get killed. Whether he defeated her or not, Owen was doomed to fail. A protective, luminous curtain gradually appeared, separating the audience from the arena for protection. Meanwhile, the curtain between Owen and Marilyn disappeared. It was time to turn threats into reality. Let's see how you plan to kill me. The smile on her face was gone and replaced by a cold, piercing glare. Owen did not reply. Since this woman had given him the chance, then he must seize it. The match officially began. Owen was the first to make his move. Using his scimitar, he summoned fierce, green winds that swirled violently around his body. This wind armor would protect him and in turn, deal damage to his opponent. With a roar, he swiftly rushed towards Marilyn, pressing his body as close to the ground as possible. He was reminiscent of a cheetah, hurtling through the savannah for his prey. In no time at all, he was already in front of Marilyn, sword raised and ready to send her to her doom. Full moon chop. Owen brought down his blade, drawing a perfect arc in the air as he swung it down towards Marilyn. A series of soft laughs rang in the arena as Marilyn simply floated backward. Owen's strike was heavy, but his opponent merely floated away from his blade, like a leaf blown away by the gentle wind. Distance was key. No matter how strong or devastating his blade was, it was reduced to nothing since Marilyn knew how to utilize the space and maintain a certain distance between her and Owen. Marilyn giggled, "You won't be able to kill me with just this." Owen gritted his teeth and continued to chase after her, slashing relentlessly but never hitting anything but air. It was almost as if Marilyn was teasing him. All she did was dodge, but she never retaliated with an attack of her own. "Come on, Owen, kill her, Owen, Owen, we support you. That woman is too arrogant. I don't like what she said. Get rid of her and I'll be happy." A lot of the warriors in the audience were already on Owen's side. Many of them were touched by his motive while also aggravated by what Marilyn had said moments before. Naturally, Marilyn spoke with the perspective of a powerful warrior. It was true that strength was a very important thing to consider, but was it necessarily above everything? Did one's strength justify trampling over other people? Did one's strength justify stealing someone else's woman? Many of the warriors saw themselves in Owen's shoes. If they were faced with the same situation and were told such things, then they too would also itch to kill this woman. So, though Marilyn was a beauty, none of them really liked her anymore. In the world they all lived in, killing one another for treasure, betraying a close comrade, inciting conspiracy within the sect, these kinds of things were commonplace, but that didn't mean one could simply openly acknowledge it just like that. They did such kind of evil things and still dared to admit it in front of so many people. That was truly shameless. At that moment, however, in the midst of cheering and fighting, Zen was feeling extremely nervous. Owen's appearance completely disrupted all of his plans. Zen had originally suppressed his trump card and tried his hardest not to reveal his true capabilities. Destroying Eden's warrior spirit was only the first step, and he did it to provoke Eddie. If Eddie did not recognize him, then his second step would be to kill Marilyn by surprise. He had even gone as far as to tamper the enchanted barriers around the arena to ensure that everything would be under his control. But Owen's sudden challenge to Marilyn was an unforeseen hitch. It was fine if he was strong enough to kill her, but if he wasn't, then he would merely injure her. She might not be able to fight again, or she might become paranoid and stay on alert, which would be extremely troublesome for Zen. Owen had been chasing after Marilyn for about 1 minute. Groaning in frustration, Owen stopped and stood still in the middle of the arena. The audience fell silent and waited with bated breath at what their hero was about to do next. Owen's eyes suddenly began to glow as green spots appeared on his face. His ears grew and became sharper while his fingernails elongated and became extremely sharp, almost like claws. Beast transmogrifying. Zen's eyebrows furrowed at Owen's transformation. Were they finally going to see a real fight now? Chapter 494, The Corpse Parasite. Owen was a warrior who boasted about his fast speed. He practiced the cultivation method of the wind system, and furthermore, he had completely comprehended the first layer of wind law. In terms of his comprehension of wind law, Owen was already on par with Zen. But no one knew what sort of lucky chance Owen had received to comprehend wind law. However, this was the world of martial artists. Those with extraordinary talents often had good luck. Since Owen had divine-level talent, it wasn't strange for him to have such a lucky opportunity. However, Marilyn's technique was unique. Even with Owen's comprehension of wind law, he was unable to catch up with her. After failing several times, Owen used the secret art of beast transmogrifying. What is that? Why has Owen's body changed? He is too fast. I can't see the transformation clearly. Tell me, what has he changed into? He's transformed into a leopard. Judging from those lines, it could be a legendary beast, the cloud leopard. He possesses the blood of the cloud leopard, and the concentration in his blood must be very high, which is why he can transform into a beast. Amongst the many practitioners, there were still some who knew a lot. The cloud leopard was a legendary beast. Even though it couldn't compare with a super legendary beast, it was on par with the blue phoenix, the roc, the heavenly mouse, and other legendary beasts. Merely having a legendary beast's blood in a cultivator's body was insufficient for him to transform into a beast. For example, Zen had the blood of the genuine dragon, but he was unable to change into a dragon because the blood concentration was not high enough. Only when the blood concentration had reached a certain level could he transform into a beast. Since Owen was able to mutate into a beast, the concentration of the cloud leopard's blood in his body must be very high. At this moment, Owen looked like a half-beast human. His nails were sharp, and his round pupils had turned yellow. Two thin lines appeared in the center of his pupils, similar to a leopard's eyes. Sharp tusks shone at the corner of his lips, and his body was covered with pale cyan light. "Ah!" Owen roared. His speed had increased manifold now that he was in beast form. With the unique aura of the legendary beast, he pounced at Marilyn. "Pa!" Marilyn probably did not expect Owen's speed to increase significantly. Since she couldn't guard against him in time, she failed to dodge his attack. His claws collided with Marilyn's shoulder. Owen's claws were so sharp that they shredded Marilyn's clothes. Instantly, her upper garments turned to powder, revealing the undergarment that covered her chest. Blood pooled in the claw marks on her shoulder. Her dark blood stood out in sharp contrast to her pale skin. Seeing that Owen was about to grab her again, Marilyn twisted her body in a panic. She sighed with relief when she avoided Owen and quickly retreated to the edge of the arena. "Shish, shish, show more, show more, her skin is so white." When Owen mauled her, her clothes should have been torn completely. Marilyn's face paled when she heard the disrespectful words of the warriors in the stands. She had followed Eddie for decades. For the sake of his lustful demon array, she had kept her virginity energy. How could she bear to be teased by those boorish warriors? Marilyn shook her head and focused on the fight with Owen. It seemed that she had underestimated him. Owen was only at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm. If he had entered the internal elixir realm, she would have died from his attack. Before Owen transformed into a beast, Marilyn was able to maintain her calm and even had time to deal with Owen. But now, facing Owen who had turned into a beast, Marilyn felt overwhelmed. She joined the tips of her thumb and forefinger. With eyes closed, she raised the other 3 fingers, and black flowers drifted from her. After transforming into a beast, Owen had entered a frenzied state. In his mind, he only had one thought, and that was to kill this woman in front of him. He didn't have much time to think and could only pounce quickly, trying to kill his enemy. The vast majority of martial artists could no longer keep up with his speed. All they could see was a flash of a cyan shadow. In the blink of an eye, it had rushed from one side of the arena to the other. Even though Marilyn's movement technique was strange, it was still difficult for her to dodge Owen's attack. As she casually pulled, a pink feather robe was wrapped around her shoulders. This feather robe was inferior to the one Zen gave to Letitia in terms of its grade, but it was a top-grade fairy weapon and was considered rare and fine amongst fairy weapons. There were very few defensive weapons, so this feather robe was as valuable as an offensive sacred weapon. "Pa!" As soon as the feather robe covered Marilyn, Owen mauled her again. However, her thin and light robe's defensive power was astonishing. It blocked Owen's power by at least 80%, so Marilyn didn't suffer any serious damage. She was still scattering black flowers. Each flower seemed to be placed casually. If someone could see Owen's running figure, he would notice that many flowers were already attached to him. However, the black flowers caused no pain or itch to Owen's body. He had already gone berserk, and all he wanted was to kill Marilyn, so he didn't care about the flowers. "Ow!" Owen roared, and his speed increased. In the blink of an eye, he attacked 3 more times, gradually forcing Marilyn into a corner. Marilyn slowly moved backward, while Owen forced his way forward, step by step, ready to tear her into pieces at any moment. Just as Marilyn had nowhere to retreat to, a sneer appeared on her face. When Owen readied himself to pounce on her, she opened her mouth and spat out a word, "Grow." Countless fine thorns grew out from Owen's body. As the thorns grew, they also penetrated Owen's body, eating his flesh as they wiggled around madly. At this moment, Owen's body was covered with blood. The black thorns bound his hands and feet. As his entire body had integrated with the thorns, he was unable to move. When the thorns had grown to a certain extent, crimson flowers bloomed from the upper branches. With a smile, Marilyn walked gracefully to Owen. Reaching out with her hand, she gently plucked a flower and brought it on the tip of her nose to sniff it. She said softly, "Give full consideration before making any decisions. You can't bear the pain of losing your lover, so you can never avenge her." "What are these black thorns?" "It's disgusting. They eat human flesh." "How tragic. His body must be filled with those black thorns by now. Yet another divine-level talent is gone. What a pity." Most people present did not recognize the black thorns, but when elderly Luna of the mysterious Luna Hall saw them, his face became serious. "Those are flesh-eating flowers from hell. They grow on bodies. How did this girl get them?" However, just when everyone thought that the fight was over, Owen's immobile body suddenly trembled, and a bug appeared in his hand. The bug was only the size of a thumb, and there were many colors on its back. As soon as it appeared, it spread its wings and flew toward Owen's head. When the bug was halfway through its journey, Marilyn thrust the flower in her hand at it. The flower branch pierced right into it, nailing it firmly to the ground. Although the bug was small, it was quite fierce. Even though it was nailed to the ground by the flower branch, it still struggled desperately. With a smile, she looked at the bug and said, "It's a corpse parasite. Owen, I can tell that you're determined to kill me. After the parasite enters your body, you'll be much more powerful, but you will also turn into a walking corpse, as the parasite will devour your soul. What's worse, you won't be able to walk the path of reincarnation after death. Eventually, your soul will be scattered." The corpse parasite was vicious. After being possessed by it, a person would definitely die a miserable death, and even his brain and soul would be devoured. But after being possessed by the parasite, a warrior would become a killing machine, and all the potential in his body would be fully exploited. Evidently, those who used this inhuman method bet all on a single throw. The light in Owen's eyes gradually dimmed. He had given up all hope. The flesh-eating flowers were unfamiliar to many people, but the corpse parasite was well known. Owen wanted to use the corpse parasite on himself. How determined he is. He dared to pay such a price for the girl he loves. Alas, what a pity. I've never heard of anyone using the corpse parasite on himself. Seeing this, many martial artists sighed. They felt pity for Owen. Zen clenched his fists as he stared at the arena, unmoving. His gaze was like the rippling waves of water. Chapter 495, Treatment. If anyone present shared the same feeling as Owen, it was Zen. Both of them were chasing the same goal. As Zen witnessed Owen's miserable ending, all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. However, Owen's miserable end didn't waver his own resolve to kill Marilyn. Instead, he was now even more determined to do it. Now, Zen closed his eyes, trying his best not to look in Marilyn's direction, for he was afraid that his killing intent was too difficult to suppress and would be detected by her. Letitia sat behind Zen in silence. She wanted to say something through her life vitality, but in the end she just let out a quiet sigh. She knew very well that she could not persuade Zen in any way. Moreover, Zen had proved that he was strong enough to fight a warrior at the internal elixir realm. He had a lot of cards up his sleeves. At any given moment, no one knew how he could trump his opponent. However, the moment Zen tried to kill Marilyn, Eddie would certainly take action. He wouldn't just let it slide. The three leaders of the World Commercial Alliance could not foresee Zen killing Marilyn, nor did they have any way of being informed of it beforehand. The three obese men would not be able to stop Eddie from retaliating in anger. That was to say, Zen would fall into an impossible situation. As Letitia came to this conclusion, she bit her lower lip and looked at Zen. Her eyes revealed a trace of determination, as if she had already made a decision in her heart. On the arena, Marilyn looked down at Owen. The latter was unable to move even an inch. "I won't kill you, but you will be tormented cruelly if I keep you alive," Marilyn said in a soft voice. "In fact, the lustful demon array is perfect for your lover. After all her six senses are sealed, she would be able to reach the internal elixir realm. Moreover, after she gives up her virginity energy for the sake of the lustful demon array, she would be able to absorb Eddie's male vitality and step into the virtual tribulation realm. The lustful demon array is an excellent technique to induce lust. It permits one to enjoy the pleasures of the mortal world." Hearing Marilyn's words, Owen, who was firmly pinned down by the black thorns, started to tremble. The thorns and the crimson flowers shook with the movement too. He stared at Marilyn with lifeless eyes. His blood-stained lips moved as he muttered something in a hoarse voice. "What did you just say?" Marilyn asked Owen, walking up to him. Owen sputtered, blood trickling out of his mouth as he spoke with some difficulty. "I said, old virgin." Marilyn's expression changed abruptly. She raised her hand, turning it into a blade. About to chop Owen's head off, she stopped at the last moment, the blade inches away from his forehead. He could see it from the corner of his eyes. "You want to provoke me into killing you," she said, a sullen smile shaping her mouth. "But I won't do that. I know you want to die, but I won't allow it." Before coming to Oracle City, Owen had done exhaustive groundwork. He had thoroughly investigated Eddie and the people always around him. He knew Marilyn had been with Eddie for decades, but she was yet a virgin owing to the lustful demon array. Naturally, she hated being called an old virgin. By then, everyone knew who the winner was. Independent warrior Marilyn C. wins. Xiao announced loudly. Independent warrior Owen now loses. As the light curtain of the enchanted barrier was removed, members of the World Commercial Alliance carried Owen off the arena. Now, it was Marilyn's turn to draw a card. She reached into the drawing box and took a card out. Then, she looked at the stand of Cloud Hall with a meaningful smile, meeting Zen's fiery gaze. Zen's heart skipped a beat as he realized right away that Marilyn wanted to challenge him. Eddie had always been condescending to Zen, but he was well aware that the latter had put an end to Eden's dedication to the martial arts. Eden, Eddie's only son, was supposed to ascend to the throne one day. Eddie was heartbroken to witness it, so he hated Zen with a passion. For him, killing Zen on the arena would be the best way to avenge Eden. It was the reason why Marilyn looked at him like that when she was drawing the card. If she drew the challenge card, it was very likely that she would challenge him at the first possible moment. What she didn't know was that it was exactly what Zen wanted from her. Unwittingly, she was playing right into Zen's hands. He too hoped that she would draw a challenge card. The small wooden card was flipped open. Upon seeing the word, exemption, on it, a disappointed look came over Marilyn's face. She glanced at Zen for a moment before returning to Eddie's stand. By now, everyone had realized that Marilyn wanted to challenge Zen. However, a single challenge card wouldn't be very useful for her. If Zen wanted to refuse her challenge, he could easily use one of his exemption cards and deny her. But the truth was that Zen too was disappointed. He had been waiting to fight it out with Marilyn. It was a pity she did not pick a challenge card. After the guards of the World Commercial Alliance had carried Owen off the arena, they began helping him get the thorns off his body. The black thorns seemed to be growing along Owen's veins, destroying his blood vessels. To cure him, the thorns needed to be removed. The guards did their job. As each thorn was pulled out, blood spilled out. The process was bloody and grimy. However, everyone from the World Commercial Alliance had been prepared for this. Because they chose to enter the arena, they had readied themselves for any prospects of injury or even death. Soon, Xiao announced the drawing result for the next match. It is Brent of Ethereal Spirit Sect versus Joel Huang of Mysterious Luna Hall. It was another battle between sect disciples. More importantly, one of the competitors was Brent of Ethereal Spirit Sect. As the only divine-level talent of Ethereal Spirit Sect, Brent was quite popular. He was the youngest participant of the martial arts contest and had only reached the ultimate level of the Illuminating Soul Realm, so he attracted much attention. It's finally his turn. Brent of Ethereal Spirit Sect is to fight. I've been waiting for him for a long time. I've bet all my money on him. It doesn't matter how powerful he is. He is only at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm. He might be a divine level talent, but Eden, another one of those, was battered by Zen. Yes, Zen is not even at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm. He is just at its 4th grade. It seems that the divine level talents are not as powerful as they say. Brent's opponent cannot be underestimated. He is a principal disciple of the mysterious Luna Hall. The warriors displayed great interest in Brent's first match. The scene quickly became fervent again. However, Zen's focus was not on the arena at all. He was paying close attention to Owen, who was receiving treatment for the thorns. Halfway through his treatment, Zen suddenly spoke to Letitia through his life vitality. Receiving a golden pill from her, he jumped off the stands and walked toward Owen, who was floating between life and death. Owen was a man of iron. He had far exceeded Zen's expectations. He had already lost half of his blood and his entire body was riddled with holes. However, he still managed to remain clear-headed. Due to utter weakness, he was no longer able to move. However, when he saw Zen, a strange look appeared in his eyes. He didn't have any relationship with Zen. He had traveled thousands of miles from the woolen grassland for the competition. Besides his lover, there was no one he knew in Oracle City. During the pre-qualifying match, Zen had blackmailed Owen into giving him a great number of Supreme Life Vitality crystals. Why did he come over? Owen wondered inwardly, still bitter over the fact. This is a grade 6 pill. It can save your life, Zen whispered to him. Zen had asked Letitia for the pill. He might not have anything to do with Owen. Owen's death wouldn't change anything for him. But when Zen sensed Owen's resolve, he thought that he should step forward to help the thrashed boy. Letitia didn't have many grade 6 pills with her. It was a high-quality healing panacea of the Cloud Hall. Why? Owen asked with great difficulty, his voice suspicious. Zen used his life vitality to wrap the pill. With a gentle pinch, the golden pill cracked open. Then, with a slight movement of his finger, the pill turned into powder and floated to Owen's mouth. Hearing the question, Zen blinked. Other than Letitia and her master, no one else knew the answer to it. In the end, Zen chose to reply to Owen through his life vitality. Why? Because we have the same goal. Owen's eyes had long lost their luster. He had surmised that his failure meant that his life was meaningless. However, as he heard Zen, his originally listless eyes began to shine and glimmer. He opened his mouth in excitement, saying, You. Unlike Zen, Owen had done a thorough investigation on Eddie before arriving in Oracle City. Not only did he investigate the identity of Marilyn, he also dug up information on the other woman with the purple power body. It suddenly occurred to him that the woman's name was Yan Luo. Zen's surname was Luo too. Owen did the math, comprehension dawning on him. At once, he understood who Zen was. Chapter 496, Marilyn challenged Zen. The 6th grade pill Zen offered slowly but surely began its task of relieving the pain the man was going through. Since he was not dead, there was a high chance that he could get significantly better after consuming the elixir. The pill started to mend his vessels and heal from the inside. However, it was concerning that the meridians in Owen's body were almost completely damaged. Even if he was capable of a full recovery from his major injuries, it would be difficult for him to regain his former strength and prowess quickly. He was looking at maybe several years down the road before coming back to his strongest form. If worse came to worst, he might never be able to reach his former level for the rest of his existence. With the elixir numbing his pain, his excited smile seemed more like a grimace when he tried to lift his head to look at Zen. As he paid no attention to the current condition of his body, the fire of hope in his heart that had been extinguished upon being thoroughly beaten had ignited once again. Anyone who were in his shoes would have been thrilled despite everything. His plan to take down Marilyn failed miserably, which meant that he would never get his girlfriend back unless Eddie released her. However, it was impossible for Eddie to let his beloved go. Discovering that someone else had also planned to destroy Marilyn lightened his mood. Although he had still felt hopeless and despair, a beacon of light shone through in the form of Zen. As Zen leaned over him and quietly inspected his weary state, he met the eyes of Owen and tried his best to give him a reassuring nod. You should take your time and rest, the man stated before walking back to the platform. He quietly muttered, Leave it to me. When Marilyn saw the exchange, a faint sneer graced her features. The woman scoffed under her breath and then turned away, fixing her gaze on the ongoing battle. Right in the center of the battle ring stood two men engaged in an intense fight. One of the fighters was Brent of the ethereal spirit sect and his opponent was Joel, who hailed from the mysterious Luna Hall. Comparing the rank of both men, Joel appeared to be marginally stronger, as he had reached the medium level of the internal elixir realm while Brent was only at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm. Astonishingly, the latter had the upper hand ever since the fight started despite the difference in rank. Cultivation levels almost always determined the outcome of a match, but it seemed that this particular fight was an exception to the norm. At a young age, the 15-year-old genius surprisingly held his position well against his opponent as he fully displayed his immense strength and ingenious strategies in combat. Even though Joel of the mysterious Luna Hall had showcased his best secret skills, the younger man was unfazed by the attacks and easily countered them. Grunting, Joel was left desperate of any special secret moves that could overpower the other. It seemed as if all his offensive attacks were not effective against him as he fended them off quite easily. Furthermore, Brent did not feel the need to use his space law, which he specialized in, due to the fact that his opponent was too weak. In the eyes of the spectators, it was without a doubt that Brent won the fight. Fortunately for him, it appeared as though luck was on his side when he had gotten a challenge card after. Grinning victoriously, he examined the piece of board on his hand. Challenge card, huh? The boy murmured, turning over the object on his palm and tracing the roughness of its engravings. As Brent stared at the board in his hands, he noticed the anticipation of the people around him and his gaze fell on the platform. With a resolute mind, he nodded to himself as he intended to use the challenge token right away. Murmurs such as, "Who does he want to challenge now?" rose from the crowd as they wondered who he would choose to face off next in the battle ring. The nerve of this boy, just getting a challenge card and immediately using it. How cocky. He's got some spirit. As expected, the genius of the ethereal spirit sect is amazing. Despite the unconvinced voices from the antagonistic folks, there were some who showed intrigue and support at the rising power of the cultivator. Scanning his eyes through the cultivators on the opposite side from where he stood, he picked up on the aloofness of a man who seemed strong yet indifferent to the budding atmosphere that surrounded the grounds. Smirking at his decision and thus pointing at his next conquest, Brent confidently declared, "For the next match, I want to challenge you, Zen." Slightly surprised, Zen furrowed his eyebrows as he heard his name being called. Numerous heads turned towards his direction, as they were expectant of his answer. From the speculations made a while back, Brent was also a divine-level talent just like Eden. Just having faced off Eden in his previous match and witnessing the fight between Brent and Joel, he had an inkling on the capabilities the 15-year-old boy could display. Humming to himself, he also noticed that although Brent was just at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm, he exuded more strength and showed more potential than Eden regarding battle force. Although it would have been a competitive and interesting battle, Zen planned to save his strength. Reserving his power was important when all he could think about was Marilyn's complete and utter defeat. As he made up his mind, he shook his head blandly and yelled out, "I refuse." Reaching into his pocket, Zen took out and raised an exemption card. Upon seeing the exemption card in Zen's hand, the young boy pouted with a disgruntled expression. Even the crowd of spectators dissented in hushed tones, inaudibly disappointed with what could have been an epic match between the two males. Since Zen's first fight in the battle ring, his prowess caught the attention of many, most especially Brent's. Upon witnessing Zen's successful maneuvers that defeated cultivators from the internal elixir realm, Brent vowed to himself that he wanted to challenge him. The young boy's former plan was to battle Zen right after he finished Eden. However, he was unfortunately unable to carry out his plan since the two cultivators who he had wanted to fight ultimately ended up fighting with each other. Before he had a chance to choose Eden as his opponent, Zen had already defeated the other in the blink of an eye. With a total defeat, Eden's warrior spirit was even destroyed. Thus, Brent changed his plan and made Zen become his first target. Disappointed, he crossed his arms against his chest and slouched. "It looks like you don't have the guts to fight with me," the young boy gloomily stated. Nonetheless, he raised his eyebrow in challenge and urged the other man into action by provoking him. "Are you that scared to lose?" Shaking his head indifferently, Zen gave an unimpressed look to the other boy. The cultivator did not intend to respond to such childish provocation from someone younger than him. If fate allowed him, he would battle this boy and take him down a peg right after he was done defeating Marilyn. With pursed lips, Brent stomped back to the platform wherein the people from his sect were mumbling angrily among themselves. Uncrossing his arms, he gripped his challenge card tightly and he despondently thought, "I just wanted to show everyone a good fight. One of them sighed, dissatisfied. I actually looked forward to watching Zen and Brent fight. One is a 15-year-old at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm, the crowd whispered conspicuously. The other one is a 17-year-old at the 4th grade of illuminating soul realm, more of them muttered privately. Judging by the disgruntled expressions of the people who had come to watch the fights, it was not just Brent who had been let down. The two warriors were amazingly powerful and no one could deny it. Maybe Zen did have his reservations, fighting with Brent. So far into the battles, I don't think he would be that kind of a coward, though. Most cultivators present at the arena expressed their disappointment at the refusal of Zen to accept Brent's challenge. Just when they altogether predicted that the two would be in a match eventually, they regained some of their sense of anticipation back. The officiator of the battles, Xiao, drew lots and lo and behold, Zen's name appeared on the board once again. Zen Luo of Cloud Hall is now hereby called to fight Davis Meng of Black Mountain Sect. Xiao announced. A grin adorned the face of Davis Meng, for he was satisfied with the person he was about to battle. Just before he jumped off the platform, Zen's melodic voice resounded. Wait. Without taking a step forward, Zen raised his voice again in order to be heard. I refuse. Reaching into his pocket once again, Zen waved his second exemption card to the baffled gasps of many. Why did he refuse again? Some of the cultivators murmured, scratching their nape in bewilderment. Is it his plan to turn down all challenges he deems unworthy? Glancing towards the uncaring man, Zen idly took out the cards in his pocket, showcasing the several exemption cards in his hands. Refusing to fight seems to be his only method since it looks like he has many exemption cards, one of them pondered. Davis Meng of Black Mountain Sect is a cultivator at the primary level of internal elixir. He is not a formidable opponent and definitely much weaker than Eden or Brent. Leaning his head to one side with a puzzled look on his face, a cultivator tried to guess Zen's intentions. What happened next made all the spectators of the battles more perplexed and surprised. On the span of 13 fights afterwards, Zen's name had popped up twice. However, he had kept on waving his exemption cards even though a sure victory was in his hands due to the opponents being weak independent warriors. During the flummoxing period, Marilyn herself had participated in 2 matches and undoubtedly defeated her opponents. After her victories, she had chosen both an exemption card and a challenge card. Weighing her options, Marilyn decided not to use her challenge card just yet. She returned to her platform with a plan in her mind. Noting that Zen had no exemption cards left, Marilyn subtly smiled before raising her hand in the air, the challenge card waving with the wind. As the grounds became significantly quiet at the silent challenge, Marilyn spoke in a gentle and melodious voice. I choose to challenge Zen Luo. Now you can't refuse to fight, the woman remarked. The intention to confront was clear in her eyes. As the words left Marilyn's mouth, Zen smiled back at her faintly. Unbeknownst to the cultivators and to Marilyn, he had purposefully and deliberately used up all of his exemption cards for this moment. In order to be chosen by her, he needed to refuse challenges until it was her turn to use her challenge card without anyone unworthy meddling. Of course, the man shrugged his shoulders and started to walk towards the ring. In fact, he continued while calmly advancing. I was not planning to refuse your challenge in the first place. As Zen approached, the tension became palpable in the air as the anticipation of the cultivators grew higher at the upcoming promise of a good fight. As he left the platform to face the confident woman, a wary voice suddenly spoke behind him, making him halt his movements. Zen, wait, be careful, something tells me winning would not be so easy this time. Letitia said. As he turned to face her directly, Zen found a thin layer of icy mist covering her features which made it difficult for him to comprehend her seriousness. However veiled and hidden she was, the worry in her usually airy voice could not be mistaken by Zen. It would do him good to listen to Letitia, she usually knew what was best. Nodding softly, Zen carefully spoke in assent. Yes, I will. After watching Zen walk out of the platform and into the battling ground, Letitia furrowed her eyebrows and bit her lip before speaking to herself inaudibly. Zen, do you really have any idea of what you are about to face? With an uneasy expression, Letitia clasped her hands in front of her and sighed. As soon as he stepped onto the field, it seemed like the atmosphere had changed as the howling wind and the darkening of clouds accompanied the foreboding battle. With the previous matches still warming his muscles and joints, Zen felt his heart begin to beat faster as he poised himself in best condition for the fight. Time was in a perfect standstill as he remembered how long he had waited before this moment to fight Marilyn had come. As he exhaled, His senses and vision sharpened as he could even hear every whisper and connect with his spirit deeper. Perhaps, it was because this battle was significant to Owen and Zen. Maybe Marilyn has also attached importance to our fight, the man thought, conscious of the woman's intentions. After all, I have ultimately crashed Eden's resolve to pursue martial arts. Eddie must have instructed her to end my life after this. Just as Marilyn was about to jump down from her platform, Eddie frowned and leant into her space to squeeze in a last word. Marilyn, do not show him any mercy. At the stern reminder from Eddie, Marilyn turned around and winked while showing him a sweet smile. Are you doubting my strength? You do not have to worry. I will definitely avenge Eden. After all he has done to him. The woman shook her head and schooled her expression into that of murderous intent, ridding herself of her earlier gentle persona. That mongrel needs to die. In reality, Eddie could actually find a way to help his son regain his warrior spirit, albeit doing so would be a difficult task. On the process of trying to help him become interested in martial arts again, Eden might become a completely different person with a separate personality. The worst part was the existence of the possibility that he might even lose a part of his memories. This was because of the fact that the tumultuous process of regaining the warrior spirit in a cultivator involved a soul source or a glimpse of a memory. Even the experts located in the 4 divine kingdoms did not have an abundant knowledge about the process, not to mention those situated in the central region. Keeping his mouth shut, Eddie merely stared at the retreating figure of Marilyn as she determinedly walked into the battle ring. Feeling his skin prickle and a sudden jolt on his spine, Eddie looked around wildly. The man sensed a strange presence that enabled him to feel targeted. As the strongest cultivator in the central region, it was nonsense that he could elicit such thoughts. There was no one who could stand a chance against him, and definitely no one strong enough to regard him as a prey. Shaking his head slightly, he focused once more to the battle ring. The woman was in a new light yellow coat in replacement for her tattered one, ripped from her previous match. Staring at Zen with a fascinated look on her face, she ought to clarify something before they started fighting. You know, I really don't get you. What do you mean? Zen countered with a frown. Did you purposefully use all of your exemption cards to wait for me to challenge you? A teasing smile was etched on her face. Acknowledging the intelligent observation of the woman, Zen noted that her quick wit made her admirable at some point. The man chuckled with mirth before speaking. I cannot get a challenge card in order to challenge you myself. With half-lidded eyes and a careful twitch of his mouth, he continued. I had to wait for you to challenge me instead. Are you not afraid of dying? Or do you have the same purpose here as that weakling? Owen, now that I think about it, you have the same surname as that beguiling little lady called Yan, the woman teased him, seeing how far she could push his buttons before he snapped. It's not a coincidence, is it? You must be related. Eddie had not thoroughly explored Yan's family background. After all, she used to live in the eastern region, far away from the central region. He had never paid a visit to the Cloud sect to find out Yan's family members. More importantly, Eddie did not fathom that anyone could pose a threat to his position back then. His power and reign reached far and wide, therefore he did not give much importance to the lineage of Yan. Furthermore, the only thing that ever mattered to him was that Yan possessed a purple power body. In hindsight, this was the ultimate reason as to why Zen was familiar to him, but he could not remember such a face or persona. After all, Zen was just an unremarkable existence to him back then, someone who did not stand out or attempted to rise among the ranks a wallflower. Chapter 497, Purple Smoke. Both Zen and Marilyn stood in the middle of the battlefield, the deafening silence adding to the thick tension as the two stared each other down. At that moment, both Zen's and Eddie's plans were slowly coming to fruition. Because of what he did to Eden, Eddie had been itching to kill Zen. He needed to do his duty as a father to avenge his son, and Marilyn was an extremely valuable chess piece for Eddie in that regard. The cleanest way to dispose of Zen was through defeat in a formal battle. For Zen, who had been plotting Marilyn's death way before, the battle was a critical stage for his plan to buy himself more time and save his sister, Yan. The martial arts contest was a competition to find out the best cultivators in terms of skill and power. Many who particularly liked killing and simply taking out those weaker than them participated in the contest, but this battle wasn't anything but simple. It wasn't a fight to find out who was stronger, nor was it a fight for simple gratification, it was a fight of old grudges and deep-seated hate. Marilyn flexed her wrist, breaking the silence as purple life vitality surrounded her, the energy humming with power. I don't care why you wanted me to choose you as my opponent, but I warn you, there's no backing out now. Zen did not answer. Marilyn narrowed her eyes and willed the purple life vitality surrounding her to suddenly expand, surrounding and enveloping the entire battle ring like a dome. This put Zen on high alert. He had already shown about 60% of his strength, but Marilyn still looked calm and composed. She's quite confident with her strength, Zen thought to himself, observing his opponent closely. What other skills is she hiding? The purple light she had cast around them was not something that Zen was familiar with, but some of the cultivators in the audience let out a gasp. I can't believe it. It's purple power domain. A series of discussions buzzed through the crowd. Domain, I thought only masters who have reached the Soul Sea realm could exhibit it. What the heck's going on? Perhaps Marilyn could display this because of her purple power body. It is a special physical constitution after all. That should explain why Eddie went to great lengths to employ lustful demon array. Zen's no match for her at all. There's no way he'll survive this fight. Zen heard all of this. He frowned as he glanced up at the purple light. Domain. The somewhat stunned expression of her opponent made Marilyn chuckle. As she raised her arm, a soft purple light glowed and dissipated in her palm, revealing 6 sharp flying knives. Wasting no time, she immediately threw her knives in various directions. Shoo, 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 shoo. The knives were all meant for Zen. The blades came from different directions, surrounding him and leaving him nowhere to run. However, Zen remained composed, moving to his left as the first flying knife came for him. Unfortunately, he wasn't in the clear as the knife suddenly bounced back from the wall and aimed towards him again. Zen squinted in annoyance. Running out of options, he quickly bent down to avoid the attack. He wasn't fast enough though, as the blade whipped past his cheek and left a small scratch that stung and bled. Marilyn smirked. You're in my purple power domain now, she declared. Here, you're doomed to die. Zen scoffed, no patience for Marilyn's nonsense. The 6 flying knives she threw weren't ordinary weapons but possibly top-grade fairy weapons. A scratch was one thing, but he could suffer serious injuries if even one knife managed to lodge itself into his body. He had dodged one blade, but there were 5 more out to get him. As the knife got close, Zen made a move to leap into the air to dodge, but before he could even get off the ground, a wisp of purple fog appeared, solidifying into a hand that pulled at his leg and held him down. Even a slight tug was enough to stop Zen from exerting his skill to take care of the annoying knives. It was at that moment that a knife flew past his arm. Zing! It was quick, and his sleeve was cut off cleanly. He was lucky that it wasn't his arm. In this purple power domain, Zen was truly beginning to feel trapped. It was not difficult to avoid one flying knife, but handling all 6 at the same time was a different matter. If he didn't act fast or got distracted, then he would be in big trouble. Though he managed to move with great agility and avoid getting any of his limbs severed, the knives still managed to leave multiple cuts all over his body that stung. Marilyn laughed as Zen continued to frantically avoid her knives inside her purple power domain. Where's your sword spirit now? She jeered. Why don't you summon that beautiful sword spirit? If it weren't for that sword spirit, you probably wouldn't have been able to beat Eden. But that won't work on me, no. She shook her head, a crazed, manic look in her eyes. Even if you call out that sword spirit now, you still won't be able to break my purple power domain. Zen was too busy dodging to listen. With a single stride, he saw an opening, a chance to end this annoying ordeal. He took a leap and landed right in front of Marilyn. You talk too much, he said before throwing a punch square to her face. Marilyn was totally caught off guard. As his fist came towards her, she closed her eyes. This show of weakness did not deter Zen. Go to perdition, he shouted. He wasn't about to show her any mercy just because she was a woman. Without any hesitation, he focused his energy onto that one punch. His fist was imbued with the power of 300 dragon scales that not even a cultivator at the virtual tribulation realm could bear the hit, much less a cultivator at the internal elixir realm like Marilyn. However, the moment his fist landed on her face, she immediately vanished into a puff of purple smoke. Zen's fist went through the purple cloud, landing onto the floor instead. A deafening crunch was heard as a huge pit appeared in the middle of the ring. The battle ring was specially designed to be power resistant so that it couldn't ever get damaged by any external force during the match. However, Zen's fist changed all that. On the other side of the arena, the purple smoke rematerialized once again and revealed a giggling Marilyn. That was very impressive, Zen, she said. You've even mastered space law, the most complicated among the rules. I don't know how you did it, but it's still a pity. You can't beat me, not even with that. Only a handful of cultivators had comprehended space law. Even the Saint Morphins of the Cloud Hall only had a superficial understanding of the rule. It was, after all, the most powerful and most complicated compared to the other original laws. In fact, it could even be said to be on par with the most mysterious time law. It was understandable how dumbfounded the audience was when they saw Zen use space law. He has actually learned all law powers. The comprehension of rules differs from person to person. It's impossible for one individual to comprehend all of them. Someone who could master 2 rules can already be called a divine level talent, but to comprehend all rules. Which level did Zen reach? None of the cultivators knew anything about baptism by laws. Truth be told, even before going through a baptism of laws, Zen had already shown some talent in space law which pushed him to make the decision of starting with space rules. However, after the baptism, he had earned a better understanding of the other rules and was able to grasp and comprehend them all. Zen's sudden display of space law shocked and irked Brent of the ethereal spirit sect. "Didn't you say there was no need to fight Zen because he was too weak?" He blurted out. "Look at what he did. Did you see just what he did? He's mastered space law. I have comprehended the first layer and been so proud of it too, but he actually mastered it." And it was true. Brent had always thought highly of himself for comprehending the first layer of space law. In fact, he was the only person in the central region who had accomplished such a feat despite only being at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm. Of course, he would feel proud. Zen, however, had learned fire law, wind law, thunder law, and now, it seemed he also comprehended space law. It was a huge blow to Brent's ego. Even before fighting him, the divine level talent of ethereal spirit sect was already feeling frustrated by Zen's shocking potential. Philip, on the other hand, was rendered speechless. He was also a heaven-level talent and used to be the pride of the ethereal spirit sect, until Brent turned up and took his place. The youngster's skills had already shocked and humbled him. He had always thought that Brent was the most talented cultivator in the central region and that nobody would ever be a match for him. But Zen just had to come in and shatter all their preconceived notions of skills and power. Though his cultivation level was lower than Brent's, he could already unleash skills as powerful as his. Zen truly shook Philip's resolve. At that moment, Philip wasn't sure if he still thought Brent was the most talented cultivator in the central region. Chapter 498, Purple Power World. As Brent's comments left Philip at a loss for words, Xander heaved a sigh and said, "What a pity for such young talent. I'm afraid he won't get through today. Letitia is still too young and inexperienced. I wonder why she sent him to take part in the martial arts contest." He was heavy-hearted as he obviously also believed that Zen would not be able to break Marilyn's purple power domain and that he was bound to lose in the end. Among the spectators in the grandstand, Roche and Patrick looked stern as they intently watched Zen's unsuccessful attacks. He seemed to be having a hard time knocking off his opponent. He even resorted to using the space law to approach Marilyn nimbly, like a bat out of torture. But he would not be able to pose any threat to her. What should he do? Extreme tension clearly filled the air as the atmosphere in the arena had gotten intense. No one dared to move. As luck would have it, Zen was able to teleport after mastering the first layer of the space law. More often than not, some warriors could teleport by relying on their speed and agility. However, no matter how fast these warriors were, their moves still took time. It could be 3 seconds, or it could be in a blink of an eye. Zen's teleportation, however, was a way to move through space. Theoretically, the time had no real essence in moving across space. And this kind of mysterious movement method gave Zen a clear-cut advantage in his face-off against the majority of the internal Elixir Realm warriors. However, it didn't quite work with Marilyn, who was in the purple power domain. Thus his attempts became futile and came to naught as he failed to cause any harm to her. Marilyn quickly disappeared in a puff of purple smoke whenever he made a move in front of her to punch her. Only the reverberating sound of her peals of crisp laughter could be heard right after she vanished. "You won't be able to hurt me." Marilyn appeared behind Zen and said with a teasing smile. Sensing her presence, Zen immediately turned around and kicked her, but she became invisible again and reappeared further away. She shook her head, looking at Zen playfully as if she was teasing a puppy. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Out of nowhere, 3 flying knives, coming from different directions were hurled, aiming towards Zen. But this time, Zen didn't dodge. With a flash of silver light in his hand, a flying knife was shot out. It swirled around Zen. Clang, clang, clang. The 3 flying knives from Marilyn were instantly cut down by Zen's broken flying knife. Actually, these knives could never cause much damage to Zen from the very beginning. It was only a tactic. He intentionally let himself be hurt by the flying knives because he thought it would make Marilyn drop her guard. And by then, he would take her by surprise and launch a fatal attack. Never did he imagine that he would be unable to kill her in the purple power domain. He realized that this was going to be too troublesome. Every time Marilyn was attacked, she would disappear in a puff of purple smoke. Zen ransacked his brain hard about this, trying to get a clue. After brief contemplation, he finally deduced that perhaps the Marilyn who kept visible in front of him was not her real body. Since the time that Marilyn had set up this purple power domain, her real body had already been hidden somewhere in the arena. That should be the case. He had been misled right from the start. Marilyn was only an illusion formed by a purple smoke. She never ceased in mocking him, provoking him to attack her. So where was Marilyn's real form in this arena? Zen suddenly used his soul force to scan every corner of the arena. After he slowly released his soul force, he got more confused based on what he got on the outcome of his search. He could sense no waves of energy. Where exactly did Marilyn hide her real form? You are using your soul to find where I am. Good idea, but it's still useless. The voice sounded chilling as the purple smog got thicker and thicker in front of him. Right there and then, Marilyn became visible in front of him, well within his reach. With your knowledge and strength, you can't possibly know what the purple power domain is. For you, this is a predicament with no solution. Soon after, another purple smoke floated in the air, forming another Marilyn roaming freely beside him. She even got so close to him and whispered in his ear. Seeing these two Marilyn, Zen struck out his palm and instantly split them into two streams of purple smoke. However, more Marilyn appeared on the arena, 1, 2, 3, 4 and it went on and on. All of them wore the same expression on their faces. And with faint smiles etched on their lips, they looked at Zen absent-mindedly. But they were not illusions. They could actually hurt him. He found this so annoying that he couldn't do anything. Zen's face darkened as he mused where her real form was. He was totally puzzled. Ha, 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 this is the power attribute of someone who has completely activated the properties of the purple power body. And this woman's real body is now in the purple power world. The faint voice of Cyan Dragon once again rang out in Zen's ears. Purple power world? Zen asked with confusion. Yes, the purple power world is such a small place. It's not a big world. Any creature, who has the purple power body and has activated it, will be able to form a connection with the purple power world. It is a little similar to the connection you have with the Killing Sword Mountain. The only difference is that you can only store the malicious aura inside the Killing Sword Mountain, while this woman can even hide in the purple power world, making her safe forever. The Cyan Dragon continued, you also have to note that although the purple power world is not big, some people forged 990 billion huge swords inside it. Anyone who has the purple power body, can use these swords to defend against the enemy. And the higher her cultivation level is, the greater the number of swords she can use. It is also said that when one reaches the peak of the purple power body, one can summon 990 billion swords at the same time which have the power to destroy the world. Look, they are coming. As soon as the Cyan Dragon finished speaking, a huge sword appeared like a speed of light above Zen's head. It was about 10 feet wide and 60 feet long. Its blade was neither made of gold nor copper, and there was even a layer of green rust on its surface as if it had been stored there for thousands of years. The huge sword appeared vertically in the horizon, but it hacked down ruthlessly towards Zen at warp speed. Bam! Zen dodged in the nick of time. As a loud thud was heard, a large crack surfaced on the ground. This wide arena was solidly built, but it was still unable to withstand the gigantic sword's slash. Likewise, even Zen's body was exceptionally strong, he wouldn't be able to survive the attacks from the sword. The huge sword eventually vanished. But soon after, another two huge swords appeared above Zen's head. Bang, bang, two deep ditches appeared on the arena as they missed the target and hit the ground. Just as Zen swerved away from the two giant swords, another three swords appeared above his head. This purple power body was truly difficult to deal with. According to what the Cyan Dragon had mentioned, purple power world wasn't a big world, but there were 990 billion huge swords within it. With Marilyn's current cultivation base, she definitely could not mobilize so many gigantic swords. But apparently, she didn't need to take 990 billion swords to kill him. Judging by the current situation, if there were only dozens of them or hundreds of swords coming down at him, Zen would probably be smashed into pieces. Bang, 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 bang. 4 huge swords abruptly smashed down, immediately hacking 4 ditches on the ground. Outside of the arena, the warriors in the grandstand were flabbergasted. They couldn't believe what they were seeing, huge swords that kept on crushing down on Zen. What the heck is this? How did such huge swords suddenly appear out of thin air? Where did all these huge swords come from? Each of them must be worth a lot of money. Right. The number of swords swooshing down is constantly increasing. It seems that Zen won't make it through. 5 swords fell at the same time. 6 swords fell down simultaneously. Another 10 swords jolted out synchronously. As more and more swords began to fall from above Zen's head, the space in which he could evade the attacks became more limited. Is that I can't do anything if she's hiding in the purple power world? Zen asked. Not really. Everything has a solution, the cyan dragon coolly said with a slow smile curled up. Why didn't you say it earlier? Zen said angrily in his mind. You didn't ask. Bam! A gigantic sword almost grazed past Zen's forehead as it whooshed down. The huge blade forcefully thrust into the ground of the arena. Then, it slowly disappeared in front of Zen. If you don't say it now, I'm going to die. Zen once again crossed through space and teleported to another corner of the arena. However, that sword was like a shadow following him and did not give him a chance to catch his breath. Just as he passed through space and arrived at another side, another 20 swords appeared above his head. Ha, 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 this is how my brother is like. He always dawdles and does everything unhurriedly. This woman is merely an internal elixir realm cultivator, so of course, she couldn't travel through different worlds. If you think that she is capable of that, then you are wrong. Actually, people with the purple power body could create special space nodes and communicate with the purple power world. Her real form is in that special node, so all you need to do is to find that space node. The red dragon was of impatient disposition, so he explained the whole thing in one breath. Swish! Zen once again traversed through space, ducking the 20 swords above his head. At this time, the entire battle arena was in a mess. There were thick cracks and ditches everywhere, creating a chaotic scene. Space node, where is it? 21 gigantic swords appeared side by side above his head, just as he finished asking. Chapter 499, Break the Purple Power Domain. At Zen's question, the 2 dragons claimed they were unsure. Her space node is definitely somewhere in the fighting arena. It is hidden, but as long as you use the space law to shuttle back and forth, you should be able to discover it, the cyan dragon added. So that's how it must be. Zen's body flickered as he took a step forward. He once again dodged the 21 giant swords above his head as he shuttled through space. As the 21 giant swords plunged into the ground, half of the entire arena was crushed. The arena that was built with the efforts of countless craftsmen now looked like a tilted and sunken boat. One end was raised high, while the other was pressed into the ground. Zen moved through the giant swords, from above to below and from side to side, while the life vitality within his body whirled unceasingly, supporting him in activating the space law. More giant swords kept crashing and gradually disappearing. Zen's figure too kept swaying. Each time he moved through space, countless afterimages were left behind. These were the shadows and illusions projected in space. The scene confused the warriors in the audience. What is Zen doing? It is true that he's able to effectively avoid the giant swords by constantly shuffling through space. However, as more and more giant swords appear, he would be unable to escape death in the end. He's just spinning things out. What a pity. This championship of the martial arts contest might as well be won by Marilyn. I'm afraid the Dragon Soar Arena will fall into her hands. Although these warriors did not have the qualifications required to participate in the martial arts contest, they had a good understanding of the current situation. In their opinion, the ones with the most strength to compete for the top 3 positions were only Brent, Marilyn, and Zen. There was no way that Marilyn would spare Zen in the battle. He was destined to die. Then, the final round would take place between Marilyn and Brent. As for Brent, it seemed as though he would be unable to snap the purple power domain. The purple power domain was mighty. It couldn't be harmed at all. It was simply an unbreakable domain, in which no one could defeat Marilyn. A transparent crystal floated over Letitia's hand. Inside it was an eye with the size of a walnut. It was unknown what creature's eye it was, but it looked as if it had a life of its own as it rotated and looked about. Letitia's small hand gripped the lower half of the crystal as she watched Zen's every move. Cloud Hall had a long history, and as the second largest sect of the central region, its legacy was rich. The crystal in her hand contained the magical eye of a young angel of death, a beast with 3 magical eyes. The 13th leader of the Cloud Hall had obtained the magical eye from the Arctic ice cap 4,000 years ago, and then sealed it in the crystal with a secret technique. The Angel of Death was not counted among the great legendary beasts, but it was still a mortal enemy of the genuine dragon. The magical eye in the crystal was the young Angel of Death's 3rd eye. It could be used 3 times after being refined with a secret method. The magical eye had now been used twice in the history of the Cloud Hall when it was faced with great danger. The magical eye's power was enough to kill any warrior at the virtual tribulation realm. But it was not sufficient to kill Eddie. After all, Eddie was above the virtual tribulation realm. However, the magical eye, capable of destroying any and everything, would be able to seek out and kill Marilyn, who was currently out of sight and hidden. Letitia was aware of the consequences of using the magical eye. It was possible that she would drag the Cloud Hall into an irreparable calamity, so she still hesitated, waiting for the situation to pan out differently. Meanwhile, more and more giant swords materialized in the arena. The number had now gone up to 40. The 40 swords crashed down at the same time, nearly swallowing up the arena. Zen dodged the swords neatly to find a narrow gap and avoid the fall. A few swords fell close to Zen's chest and back, creating giant craters in the arena. Swoosh! Before the next wave of swords could land, Zen's figure shuttled through space again. This time, as he made his way, he suddenly noticed a strange movement in space, as if the space itself had become somewhat distorted in the moment. Space in this world was extremely stable, thus Zen was unable to discover any black lines here, like the ones he had found in the space of the Cloud Road. In an instant, he realized that this was the space node, the place where Marilyn was hiding. Just as this thought arose in his mind, another 40 swords popped up and slashed downwards. Zen's figure swayed back and forth once again. He circled around the edge of the arena to avoid the giant swords. Then, he took a long sword out of his space ring and stabbed it in the direction of the space node. Undoubtedly, it was the sharpest lunge of a sword he had ever made. What does Zen want to do? Why does he seem to be attacking the void? Did he discover something? Could it be where Marilyn is hiding? Don't tell me he has been driven mad by the giant swords. There's clearly nothing there. Zen's long sword pierced through the space node. A strange flower, dripping of blood, bloomed in the air and a figure staggered out from inside of it. She held her chest in alarm and stared at Zen with a pair of vicious eyes. There is actually someone there. Marilyn was hiding in the void. A warrior shouted out loud. Zen gripped his sacred weapon tightly and stared at Marilyn. Who said I couldn't break your purple power domain? Marilyn clutched her bleeding chest. A hint of blood became apparent on her pale and gloomy face. She cackled, the sound filled with malice. I didn't expect you to find me in such a clumsy manner. She didn't feel so good being stabbed with a sacred weapon. It was fortunate that Zen's sword didn't have any special powers infused to it. Perhaps because it was a sword, it didn't contain any martial skills. However, its toughness and power were still comparable to other sacred weapons. I have no interest in playing hide and seek with you. Since I've found you, you must die. Zen did not stay put any longer. His figure flashed again as he leapt through space and lunged at her with his sword. A smile still lingered on Marilyn's face, like she was wholly confident of herself. I didn't expect that. I must admit that I underestimated you. However, you were wrong to think that I would let you outsmart me in this way. Dodging Zen's sword, she left her wound uncovered, allowing the blood dripping from it to splatter to the ground. She smiled more widely. This skill is a bit unstable. Even I can't control it so well. The drops of blood dripping to the ground did not seep into it. Instead, they bounced around incessantly like little bugs. The droplets of blood lined up together, morphing into a unique rune. The life vitality inside of Marilyn's body began flowing to it. At the same time, another beam of purple light shot into the space node that Zen had just stabbed at. The Cyan Dragon's vigilant voice resounded in Zen's mind all of a sudden. Zen, quick, kill this woman. She is summoning the true spirit of the purple power world. Even if the weakest true spirit were to come, it would finish you off. The Cyan Dragon had been indifferent when Zen was being crushed by the giant swords summoned by Marilyn in the arena. He had truly believed that the swords would cause no fatal damage to Zen, and he had been proven correct. But at the moment, the Cyan Dragon was rather anxious. Upon hearing what the Cyan Dragon said, Zen didn't hesitate. He took a single step to stop in front of Marilyn and then chopped at her. Once again, Marilyn's figure danced in the air. She was able to dodge the attack once again. However, half of her long hair was cut off. Again, the killing intent in Zen's eyes surged forward as he rushed toward Marilyn once again. He simply couldn't allow her a chance to catch her breath. Marilyn instinctively understood that they had reached a most crucial moment. Her figure flickered once again. However, it was tough for her to dodge a sword strike that was combined with the space law and danced to its tune. This particular attack managed to pierce through Marilyn's ribs. Die. Successfully having stabbed her, Zen put his sword back into his space ring. Now, he rushed closer to Marilyn to throw a punch at her. He had never been so ruthless to a woman before, but he knew he had no other choice but to kill her. As Marilyn saw Zen's fist coming at her, she realized that his strength was not that of any ordinary warrior. His fist might be even deadlier than his sword. At this critical moment, she waved her hand in a sleek motion and a purple enchanted barrier enveloped her. Enchanted barrier. Useless. Zen exerted the power of the emerald crystal in his left arm and injected it into the enchanted barrier. Crack. The enchanted barrier broke into pieces like an eggshell. Boom. Zen threw another punch at her chest, knocking her down to the ground from the air above. The power in the single punch was enough to crack the bones in her body, making her collapse limply as if she had no bones at all. Zen was relieved when he saw the light on the blood rune fade away and vanish. He wasn't sure what a true spirit was, but he was certain that he was no match for it. If this woman had summoned the true spirit, he would have been dead for sure. Chapter 500. The Amazing Enchanted Barriers. Heavy footsteps thundered on the dusty rock surface. It was Zen, who slowly descended into the arena and walked towards Marilyn. It turned out that the power of Zen's punch was enough to break all of Marilyn's bones, but she wasn't dead yet. If Marilyn were only an ordinary woman, it would be impossible to save her life as her injuries were too grave, but she was a cultivator at the internal elixir realm. As long as she was treated with elixirs in time, she would eventually heal. However, Zen was about to kill this woman. Zen won. He really won. Luckily I bet on him. But it seems he wants to kill Marilyn. Will he dare do that? I don't think so. Eddie is watching them. Many of the warriors in the audience began to whisper among themselves when they saw Zen walking towards Marilyn. If he really dared to kill her, then things would get worse. Meanwhile, Letitia tightly clutched the crystal in her small hand. It was already infused with her life vitality, and the magical eye of the Angel of Death constantly rotated inside. She was nervous at that moment, as she was quite clear that Zen would kill Marilyn. Zen, leave the arena and I'll spare your life. One more step and you'll die. Eddie's calm voice rang from the elevated platform. He walked towards the platform's edge with closed fists, which glowed with yellow life vitality. The elevated platform built by the World Commercial Alliance was made of solid basalt. A crack appeared on its surface beneath Eddie's feet, and then it passed through a few feet on the elevated platform before it spread to his surroundings. Eddie had shattered the platform with just a light step. Everyone went completely silent, and only the cracking sound of the basalt was heard. The leaders of the large sects were also speechless. Even the naive and talkative Brent sensed the tense atmosphere before him and didn't say a word. On the other hand, Zen stopped and looked at Eddie. Marilyn was very important to Eddie, but Zen had to kill her for Yan's sake. After that, Zen crossed the space again. The long sword in his hand glinted under the light as he aimed it straight at Marilyn's neck. "You're courting death," Eddie shouted. Suddenly, he threw a frustrated punch towards the arena. Though he hadn't attacked anyone for many years, he was still the #1 warrior in the central region. One could just imagine the power of his punch. His punch seemed to drain the world of all its energy as his bright, golden fist shot towards Zen at an incredible speed. As he launched his attack, Eddie was confident that he could kill Zen before Zen could kill Marilyn. The moment Eddie made his move, everyone gasped and held their breaths. The #1 warrior in the central region launched his attack, which was targeted at a junior at the Illuminating Soul Realm. He really did attack Zen. In the crowd, Letitia gently clenched her fist, and the crystal in her hand instantly shattered. A dark, golden light flashed from the magical eye of the Angel of Death, which had broken free from the crystal. The ray of light looked like it could destroy everything it touched. It shot towards Eddie's fist radiance at an extremely fast speed, and completely destroyed it. It is done. Evil East Lord's punch is blocked. It's the leader of the Cloud Hall. I thought she was too young to be a powerful cultivator. She used a treasure. It's one of Cloud Hall's trump cards, the magical eye of the Angel of Death. If I'm not mistaken, rumor has it that it is the most precious treasure that could kill a cultivator at the virtual tribulation realm in an instant. Now, all the spectating cultivators were so shocked by the turn of events that they almost couldn't breathe. They couldn't predict what would happen next, and could only sit and watch from their seats. Meanwhile, Eddie just snorted. He didn't stop and threw out another punch. At that point, Zen's sword was already at Marilyn's neck, while Eddie's fist radiance was aimed at Zen. Letitia's expression changed. Just as she was about to rush into the arena, she saw that Zen didn't push down his sword. Instead, he raised his head and smiled at Eddie. Just when everyone thought that Zen would die, he even managed a strange smile. Everyone couldn't help but feel something was off. Boom! The punch violently burst out with extreme power. The most affected ones were the cultivators outside the arena. The power of Eddie's punch was enough to stop the river's flow and cause the mountains to collapse. The violent winds from the punch blew down everyone in the audience, and they all fell on top of each other. Rocher and his friends were seated at the very last row. They fared slightly better, but they were still affected and were moved away from their seats. They were filled with shock, followed by endless worry. When the power of Eddie's punch had revealed itself, everyone looked towards the arena once again. To their surprise, Zen still stood there, unharmed. What happened? Zen blocked Eddie's punch. Impossible. This kind of thing would never happen, even in a dream. How's that possible that he blocked Eddie's fist? Eddie is a warrior at the life and death realm. He's been through 3 heavenly tribulations, and is now comparable to an immortal. Zen is just a nobody. That doesn't make sense. When everyone thought that Zen had vanished into thin air, he stood there in the arena completely unscathed, and didn't even move an inch. This was too good to be true. Letitia, Lady Poison Blood, Raven, Xander, Dylan, Hobbs, and Shao all moved to the side, with shock in their wide eyes. The cultivators in the audience probably didn't see what happened, which was why they were surprised to see Zen stand unharmed even after Eddie had punched him. However, the warriors at the virtual tribulation realm clearly saw that Eddie's attack did not hit Zen, but was blocked by the arena's enchanted barriers. The enchanted barriers can block a punch from a cultivator at the life and death realm. Xander exclaimed. Now, he was even more confused. Whether it was Letitia, Xander, or Dylan, they all suddenly thought of the runes that Zen had drawn on the stone tablets. He must have tampered with the runes when he repaired them. The enchanted barriers, defensive power formed by the runes under the arena, was already impressive on their own. The initial goal when the enchanted barriers were designed was to block out the powers of the cultivators at the internal elixir realm. The players in the martial arts contest were usually only at the early stage of the internal elixir realm, but this time it was raised to the middle stage of the internal elixir realm. The defensive power of these 6 enchanted barriers was tailored to those at the late stage of the internal elixir realm. Therefore, even if Zen had redrawn some of the runes and used the perfect brushwork to activate the runes, maximum power, the enchanted barriers were only able to withstand an attack from a warrior at the early stage of the virtual tribulation realm at most. However, Eddie, who had stepped into the life and death realm and passed through 3 heavenly tribulations, couldn't break the enchanted barriers. It was simply unbelievable. It was on par to the sect-protecting array Arnold, the son of Rune, had left behind. Moreover, the sect-protecting array had tens of thousands of runes in it. The combined power of all its runes was able to activate the defensive power of this level. How many runes were under the small arena? It was only a few hundred runes. In addition, Zen had only redrawn more than 100 runes. At that moment, Zen's existence immediately became like a precious treasure in the eyes of many sect leaders. The sect-protecting array was too important for any sect. If they encountered strong enemies, the sect-protecting array would always be able to hold them off for a period of time. It was unlikely for the invaders to smash the whole sect into pieces. Once upon a time, the Black Mountain sect, a 4th-grade sect, had a feud with a cultivator at the early stage of the virtual tribulation realm. That cultivator was no match for the leader of Black Mountain sect, but he was extremely fast in speed. Whenever the leader of Black Mountain sect went into seclusion or occasionally left the sect, that cultivator wreaked chaos in the Black Mountain sect. When the leader came back, the cultivator had already escaped. Even a cultivator at the early stage of the virtual tribulation realm had caused a 4th-grade sect to suffer. In the end, the Black Mountain sect had no choice but to settle this matter. It would have been helpful for them if they had a sect-protecting array at that time. It would at least hold off the enemy for quite a long while. Back to the present, Zen had only used more than 100 runes to block Eddie's attack. If he had drawn thousands of runes to form a sect-protecting array, would it have been enough to defend against a cultivator at the life and death realm and even kill him? With that thought into consideration, one could imagine how astounded the sect leaders were. Even Lady Poison-Blood, who hated Zen so much, suddenly looked at Zen seductively, her eyes filled with hunger and thirst.